Hello there everybody and welcome to another edition of By the Numbers, the CSGO edition, with me, your host, R.Lewis, and our man embedded in Korea, trying to make them all love Counterstrike as much as we do. It is Duncan Thorin Shields. How are you doing?
Yeah, just out here with all my Korean dogs, you know, just hanging.
Yeah, I'm glad. It's been an interesting day. You've already been up and made a video today. No dramas.
We've all done that, right, Rich?
Is that how it works? Yeah, but it's a bit different. What time is it where you're at?
It's 4 a.m.
There you go, mate. You're a machine. I say it every week. I don't know how you do it. But lots to talk about. Have you been able to keep up with the Counter-Strike while I've been in the trenches?
Yeah. I was watching that tournament. It was good.
Did you like
Except for that part where that brilliant Fnatic team got beaten by those sniffling underdogs who didn't do that part? I wasn't a big fan of that, but the rest is all good.
We're gonna come to that. I was gonna ask if you like the part where Henry G did an impression of you with that nice ginger beard. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. You do realise, Henry G, that just means I get to do an impression of you at a future event. Yeah.
God,
it's coming, mate. It's coming. Yeah, admittedly, you'll have to get famous, so there'll be a context to it. Not just be like, who is the impression of some other guy who was at that other event? I don't remember him. All right.
Well, he's running a skins betting site now, so I'm pretty sure he'll be famous soon enough when he's ripped off a bunch of 13-year-old Ukrainian kids and has fled the country. So we can all look forward.
After all the money was rerouted to the Cayman Islands or something, he's just a tax refugee.
It was my partner. I had no idea. that was happening. So look, let's start with the big event. It was the FACEIT finals, which of course happened as part of DreamHack Valencia. I was out there. I was having a great...
That kind of fucked with my head, by the way, the fact that people kept calling it DreamHack Valencia, but then it was technically FACEIT. Like, I noticed people were unsure. Like, was it a DreamHack tournament? Was it FACEIT? It's just FACEIT, right? But, like, what was the set? Did DreamHack actually run the tournament for them? How did that work?
Well, so my understanding, and I'm only saying this to the guy who was there, but basically, DreamHack wanted to have a CSGO tournament there. FACEIT wanted to have a LAN final. So why not, that was well produced and perhaps even in an exotic and glamorous location. So why not combine and merge the two, enter into that spirit of cooperation like so many companies don't in esports. And basically DreamHack, it was all their production team. You know, Nicholas, that we love so much, always in our ear, like, Richard, can you control Thorin? Yeah, he just called someone a Korean dog. Can we get him off air, please? Yeah. So he was handling all of the the broadcast and everything, and the admins and stuff were DreamHack as well. So it was pretty much a DreamHack in terms of production. I think that really showed, but it was a FACEIT event. So, but FACEIT obviously arranged everything, brought the teams, had all the online stuff, had the casting talent there. So it was a real good combination. Basically, everything that was good about both companies sort of coming together. And I didn't actually see anyone say anything bad about it. I mean, don't worry. Sure, I've signed up to the entire DreamHack tour, and they're paying me loads of cash. But everybody knows I'm not a shill. Everybody. So
especially the people who pay you enough to say that, they know definitely what they're getting their money for.
Oh, you definitely. You buy my credibility so you can play with it. But at the end, I get to take it home. Like, my credibility. So anyway, I thought it was great. I didn't see any complaints. Everybody liked it. All of the Reddit threads and everything were all like, wow, that's like. And of course, it came off the back of two pretty shitty events, if being honest. ESL, ESEA Pro League finals were a little bit disappointing. I think ESL acknowledged, they had a bit of humility about it. And then, of course, you had ESWC, just a monstrously arrogant, so what, it was a shit event, huh? I don't even know what nationality that was. I better be careful. A bit all over the place. But anyway, you get the point. They didn't even care that it was a bad event. Apparently, anyone who said it was a bad event was just lying through their teeth, which is what we like to do, obviously, in the journalism trade. But anyway, back to DreamHack Valencia. If I remember rightly, it was you are watching DreamHack Valencia powered by FACEIT, I think was the official way we had to word it. But anyway, it was a great event and lots of thrills, chills, spills, and
automobiles.
Yeah, why not, mate? Why not have it all? So, do you want to work your way backwards from the final, or do you want to start in the groups and get to the final? How do you want to do it, Duncan? It's your brain I'm going to be picking.
Yeah, start in the groups, actually.
Yeah? All right, then. So here we go. So, basically, when I say I'm starting in the groups, obviously this includes the sort of the first day one that I wasn't involved in. I was doing Heroes of the Storm on this day, so if some of the details are a little bit hazy, I apologise in advance. But let's talk about. I think it's fair that we can sort of talk about Kinguin. I thought Kinguin. They had a very. You saw the good and the bad at Kinguin. They lost to Cloud9 in their first game, which immediately put them really up against it, and they had to have a best of 3 against Virtus.Pro because of the way the groups worked. So I thought this was perhaps the best we've seen of Kinguin. And what made it really interesting was they came out and they said, we're now going to basically have 5 players, no in-game leader. The coach is going to stand behind us, is going to pull the strings of the players, tell us what to do, and we're just going to listen. They came in dry, as in they left the boot camp to come to the event, and they've just brought in Dennis. So there was that. It was their first offline event with Dennis involved in the team. So lots of things going on. And it looked like it was going to be business as usual. They lost quite heavily to Cloud9 in the first game. But then when it came to the best of 3 against Virtus.Pro, they really, really turned it on. It was a great series, across the board. An overtime on Train, which Virtus.Pro were able to win, 21-17. Then Dust 2 came along. Kinguin took it, no problem, 16-12. But I think the thing everyone's going to remember about this series is Cash, a map that is usually very good for Virtus.Pro. Kinguin 16-0'd Virtus.Pro, a winner of majors in the past. Oh, yeah. So some thoughts about this series along the lines of what I really want to ask you is, was this sort of supreme Virtus.Pro meltdown? Do we need to start taking Kinguin seriously? What do you think this tells us?
I mean, in that specific series, you saw that actually, by the way the first game went. Like, okay, it'd be one thing, okay, VP like steal map 1 in overtime, but then they win map 2 convincingly. You'd be like, okay, whatever, maybe you got a slow start, you can figure it out. You still, who cares as long as you win? But because Kinguin was the only team in all 3 maps, you have to say Kinguin was just convincingly better than VP here. I mean, first they could have won 2-0, and then they didn't, and they crushed the 3rd map. And obviously one that literally was like a classic VP map, because VP was one of the first teams to kind of show, in terms of Europeans, how the map is played, like what the strengths are. They were one of the first teams who like showed that mid pressure that they always use. That, yeah, it was a classic map for them. So I was very shocked to see it 16-0. Now, the way it's been going recently, I mean, it's not like VP's terrible still. I don't think they've dropped off entirely. It's just that it's more like they play a similar level against most opponents. So against some good teams, they can play well. They play well against Fnatic at ESEA. But against lesser teams, they're also having, I mean, they lost to Mouse. They're having maps that they're giving up to teams. So there is some issues. But I don't want to take too much away from Kinguin here, because I do think, like, I mean, that sort of performance, they also could have beaten some other really good teams in that spot.
I mean, I gotta say, I was there. I watched it. I watched it unfold. I think it's one of the craziest results I've ever seen, because it became quite apparent. I think even at 7 or 8-0 that it was going to be the 16-0. We would turn around and say this is going to be 16-0, and not even sort of that way like, oh, at this rate it's going to be 16-0. Like just dead on, looking at each other on the desk. We're looking at a 16-0 here. Now, where it got really interesting was, I mean, like Taz, a lot of people said he didn't have a great series. I didn't think Bialy really accounted himself too well. There was a lot of talk about, like, it was really weird, actually. Loads of people were giving Pasha a hard time and saying that he was playing stupidly and he was making lots of mistakes. But in realistic terms, in this series against Kinguin, he had the most kills on his team. He did have some nice rounds, but there was something going on. And I brought this up on stream for those that remember. You know, they've got Kuban now as the coach behind them. Well, Taz is at one end, Pasha's at the other. They've clearly got some issues going on, which we've known for a while in Virtus.Pro. It's not like they're all besties, right? And it was like when you're the kid caught in a divorce and your parents are there and your mother goes, tell your dad to pass the salt. And you have to go, can you pass the salt to mum, dad? Dad goes, you tell that bitch. You tell that bitch she's not getting any salt that I bought with my money. Can you not call mum a bitch, dad? You tell her. All right, okay. And I was watching. I mean, that might speak volumes about my childhood. I don't know, but Cuban was really relaying information between the team. The team clearly didn't want to talk to each other at this point where it was going wrong. So I don't know, dude. I mean, could this be the beginning of the end? Are we really close to some sort of cataclysmic split in Virtus.Pro? Do we need to read a lot into this?
The problem with their team is that it's not like this is like the first signs of troubles. Actually, even going back into 1.6 before they had some of these players now, they've always had the same track record, which is because their team can always be so good at some points. When it's really good, they'll tell you nothing's wrong. Like, oh, I love everyone in my team. You know, we'll never change this lineup. You know, it works so well. You know, this guy's amazing. Even the guy who looks like he doesn't get as many frags, I think he's really good. He's such a valuable player. But whenever things start to go badly, and obviously at the moment they're going quite badly, as soon as things start to go badly, there's always like people in the team who are like, it's like people's normal habits then become the frustration, you know. So in this particular lineup, I remember when they were getting wrecked towards the end of last year, early beginning of this year, by like Fnatic and teams that they could never get over the hump. Some of their players would be like, oh, we don't, you know, our players don't use the OP pistols properly. We don't play this style properly. We do this stuff wrong. And at the time, you're still thinking like, whoa, calm down, mate. You're still a really good team. You know, things might get better in a few months. And then they do for a while, you know, they'll have a good tournament. And then again, it seems like things are fixed. So I don't think it's like that sign alone means it has to break up. I think they always regress to that state when the results are bad. But I do have to say, if it continues to happen, especially because this year, especially, there've been way more upset results against them, you have to feel like eventually they're going to make a snap. And the problem is, listen, they've tried at past events playing with like Michu, they had him at that Gfinity, they've tried playing with Manice. I think one of these days, if the guy who's pissed off the most can convince two other people in the team to get rid of someone, they're going to end up with someone like Michu in the team. I think it's just going to happen eventually.
Who do you think would make way if you were the Tinkerman?
See, that's the problem. Because the problem is, if I'm the GM and I don't know anything about the relationships, I mean, I'm obviously just going to pick Taz because I look at the team and he's obviously the player who can't compete the most. Admittedly, he does do some supportive things, but you know, the rest of them, a lot of them are very good players. And Neo particularly has been like, he has kind of picked it up a bit over the last few months, I thought. He has improved a bit. So just playing-wise, I'd probably pick Taz to go. The problem there is, though, he really is sort of like the captain-type figure, and you always did feel like he has like a lot of heart as a player, and I feel like they're such a confidence team. I think he's the sort of player where he probably does contribute a lot of like locker room shit there in that sense. So if I'm not going to take Taz out, and I'm looking at relationships, I probably have to pick one of the stars who's underperforming. So maybe it has to be Pasha. Maybe it has to be Bialy, you know.
But then again, all right, what if I was to play you that advert we have to see like at Gfinity where Taz just goes, I'm on it, and does the eyebrow thing? You would definitely kick him if you had to watch that 100 times, wouldn't you?
Probably, yeah. I mean, if you had to room with that guy, travel to events with that guy, you know, you just come back from the after party. It's 2 hours till the taxi comes. He's like, I'm on it. You just like, fuck it, get him out of this team. I think the other guy doesn't even talk. Get him in here now. It's like, but no, that's the problem. The other problem with their team, though, is a real serious problem. Is that it's not like there has been, even among the stars, one that's been consistently bad. Like, what's funny is I would have said Snacks was the guy a few months back who was having real problems.
Well, he did.
Now he seems to be doing. He seems to be doing all right again now. He's not that bad. He's still not. He's not a great player like he was before. So the problem is, you have to. I think the main crux for their team is: do the two newer guys, Snacks and Bialy, are they like a package deal? Are they never going to be split apart? Because if so, it's probably going to be Taz who's going to get kicked. Because I'm trying to think who else like Pasha's the streaming star, never so popular. You know, it's not just playing considerations. I think here, unfortunately.
Just one final question on Virtus.Pro, and then, like I say, we'll concentrate on the victors a little bit more. Is there? It feels like it's been a while since Virtus.Pro have really turned up at a big tournament. You're the stats man, so you can verify if I'm venturing into unsafe territory here, but that's certainly how it feels to me.
The problem was they would have had a really good tournament at ESL, ESEA. I mean, they won their group, clearly. They smashed Cloud9. They made the semi-finals. They took a map off Fnatic. So that all should have been like, hey, great tournament. But the problem is the storyline of the rest of the tournament was everyone was watching Cloud9, and then because Fnatic get past them anyway, everyone's like, well, that's a formality. And then because Cloud9 plays Fnatic so close, everyone remembers like, oh, well, the obvious best team was like Fnatic, then Cloud9, then... But we never really know. Virtus.Pro was good at that tournament. They just kind of... I mean, they had to play the champions in the semi-final, so we never could know if it could have been a semi-final. Like, in a world where Fnatic and TSM don't get upset in their group, maybe they just play Fnatic in the final. Who knows, you know? I mean, they've always had a favourable matchup against Cloud9. That's something that could keep them in this thing, actually. If they can just get Cloud9 in the bracket stage, maybe they can be the team that beats Cloud9, and that gives them a revived form, you know? Who knows? That's an interesting consideration, but... And they had the Gfinity a couple of months back, the one they got wrecked by Fnatic in the final of. So again, they did get wrecked in the final, but up till then they were doing well. They beat Na'Vi in 2 maps. That's the problem. Their form isn't entirely a nosedive. It's just that even the good performances, they're not winning tournaments that way. Even if they get to a final, they're not winning. And then the ones that are bad can look really bad. Like twice getting beaten by Mouse Sports, you know. Like, it's going to be hard to consider yourself an elite team if that's going to happen to you.
So back to Kinguin. Got to say, in this particular series against Virtus.Pro, I thought Makalele and Rain were amazing. The both of them. I mean, everybody talked about that Rain 1v4 clutch where he finished it on 1 HP, but of course, that was Virtus on train. That was Virtus.Pro being shit. I mean, this...
Like, he did everything right, but he wouldn't even have had the opportunity to win that if they hadn't given him some favors, basically.
Exactly. Similar both. Yeah, exactly. Similar and me talked about it. He was like saying, you know, but you'll never see a great moment unless someone makes a mistake, which is true. But when you see a team as experienced as Virtus.Pro making 4 mistakes in a row to ultimately die and gift someone a clutch like that, it was a bit disappointing. But fair play. I mean, it was one of the moments of the tournament. And I thought Rain was really, really good throughout. Definitely one of the high points for Kinguin. I wanted to pick your brains a little bit before we move on to the series against Na'Vi, just about Fox and his performance in general, because this is really interesting. So everybody knows Fox, like on HLTV, according to everyone from Portugal, Fox is the greatest AWPer who ever lived. Like he was born with an AWP and raised by feral snipers, and is just a god with anything with a scope. And that's what everyone says. He's like the number one, but it's not true. He was good, pretty good, but that's about it. But he's given up the AWP, handed it to Makalele after being the designated AWPer in the team, and he's now rifling. And he statistically was the weakest player in this series, in the Na'Vi series. But as we know, stats don't tell the full story. So I just wanted to, and it's a massive selfless gesture to sort of give up what you're good at for the betterment of the team. I would sort of temper that before we all praise him as the next Jesus. I would temper that by saying he is getting paid a fuck ton of money. So it's like, whatever, baby, you up. Yeah, I don't care. As the check cleared, you can up, Bill. Not a problem. But that said, he is now in unfamiliar territory for the first time in his career. So I just wanted to ask you specifically about him.
Yeah, the problem with Fox is like that's a good move by him. Give up the AWP. He should have anyway, because it should be Makalele AWPing mainly. That should be the case. I mean, in theory, before it was the other way around. It's Makalele giving it up so that Fox could try and do it and see how good he could be. The problem is, props for doing it, but then once we get you onto a rifle, then it's like, so why are you in this team again? Like, you know, isn't there like 50 players who could do your role better than you? Probably is. So unfortunately, I still think he's not a very good player. And if I look at, especially now they have Dennis, who has some potential. Now you start to look at the rest of the team. It's suddenly not a joke team anymore. Some of these players, it is getting towards like a star level team now. And he's not going to be one of them, I'm afraid. I mean, I've never seen anything suggest he's going to be a really good player. So unfortunately, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the point in being in a team is. With that said, it's a new project, so it's unlikely they're just going to boot him immediately. So they'll have more opportunities. I just don't expect that he will do well with them.
I've talked about this on previous shows, though. Like, when you're in Kinguin, it's like being in one of those movies, like where Columbo or fucking Angela Lansbury turn up, and it's like the lights go out, and when the lights come on, some other motherfucker's dead in the room, you know? Like, Fox has got to be thinking, okay, all right, we've got where they're quitting. I'll just have a look around, see who else is shit. Well, Scream's the human aimbot. Fuck, okay. Makalele, though, oh, no, he's playing sick right now. Oh, fuck. Oh, God. Just like this sweat on his brow. Like he knows it's coming. So it's going to happen. If anyone's going to get kicked, it's going to be him.
The next LAN is a Star Trek away mission, and he's wearing a red jersey.
Yeah, exactly. He's a red top, mate. He's fucked. So I don't know, mate. I've got to say, like,
basically, the only reason I can see to keep him in the team is if it increases Portuguese purchases of possibly stolen keys from Kinguin by 38%. Otherwise, I don't know what stats and metrics you guys are using to make him a valuable player.
Awesome. But here's the thing. So I've said this. They could have had shox, you know. Like
if they could, if they didn't come with this money.
Yeah, I think that could have happened.
I mean, put it this way,
Eco's an option, surely.
Put it this way,
play for anyone.
Even if they legit like never actually had a chance to even speak to shox, etc., blah blah blah, or there never was even discussion. If I was Kinguin, if you really do have all this money, I would just go to shox with a blank check and just be like, listen, mate, even if it's only a 6-month thing, just come play for us. You know, like we'll give you as much as you want. Hey, you want to bring Smiths with you? Bring him with you. You know, why wouldn't you? Again, that's a great exposure move as well. Every fucker would be watching Kinguin games, even if they weren't that good.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a shame for shox. Well, it's not a shame actually. We'll get into that in the news section. But shox is so fucking loyal to Smiths. Like, what a great friendship they must have. Because you know, it was like put it this way: when you were offered all of that money to go do a LOL show, and it was like, they were like, can Richard come? Yeah, fuck that, mate. No. We're not getting into trouble with Riot. We want the money. We want the LOL show. We're gonna go do that. You know, we haven't got that kind of bromance, mate. Those guys, shox could have gone anywhere. Like you say, named his price. You break the bank for a player like shox, and instead he's gone to fucking Titan with Smiths. Because, you know, I don't think Smiths was as attractive a prospect. Anyway, back to Kinguin. So, they go into a series against Na'Vi. Right, they're looking good. And, it's got to be said, they took a map off Na'Vi.
Yep.
And it was surprising, actually, because the map they took was Inferno, which Na'Vi have been playing really well on lately. It's something they've been picking more and more and more. It was quite a comprehensive a victory for Kinguin. They got 7 terrorist rounds. This was like, you know, you're like, wow, you got to stand up and take notice. Na'Vi just won ESWC.
And you have to remember, Inferno, by the way, was the map that Na'Vi dominated C9 on in the final, like 16, obviously 16, like 16-3 or something, 16-4. They absolutely shit on C9. So Na'Vi is a good Inferno team. They're not the best, but they are very good. So yeah, that result in itself kind of confirms that the VP series wasn't just a one-off, you know? I don't know that they're good enough to regularly beat a team like VP level, but hey, it's legit that you even then take a map off Na'Vi, because we know Na'Vi isn't in a slump. We know they're very good right now.
Yeah, they're very, very good. So it really took, I mean, it was comprehensive in the end, 16-6 on Overpass. But it's also got to be said, in this series, the guy I'm always talking about every event and saying, yeah, but I don't think we can. And you're like, shut the fuck up, Rich. You're always talking about him. Stop it. Seized went fucking ham in this series. He had 78 kills across 3 maps. The next highest was
like
57.
62 of them were on Fox or something.
Probably. One per year of his life.
That's the only other way that Fox could survive, is if we bring the anti-Fox hunting campaign into CSGO. Like, why do 5 rich players gang up and hunt a harmless fox? Let him live.
Yeah, it was a bit much when they were putting his blood on their face after the game, and that was a bit too much. But he, no, Cease was just sick, and he was great all tournament. Really incredible performance from him, and it showed that he's sort of found that consistent level that we all wanted him to. Like, that was the criticism you aimed at Cease in the past, that he was inconsistent. That when he did it, it was good, but he didn't always do it. He pretty much showed up every game, I thought, this tournament. And yeah, he was one of the reasons why Kinguin lost. Because Guardian was a little bit subdued by his usual high standards. Flamey was nowhere to be seen. So yeah, it was incredible, really. I mean, even Zeus and Edward were sort of fragging this tournament for Na'Vi, but again, we'll come at that in a sec. So Kinguin drop out against Na'Vi. No shame in that. I think they won a lot of people over. They did better than a lot of people expected and give them credit to. And then what happens, Duncan? They fly home. Bye. Thanks for all the memories, Valencia. Thank you. Straight into a scandal. Boom. Delito, their coach.
Yeah.
VAC banned.
Classic.
The classic VAC ban.
Now the problem is, by the way, he used to hang around and be on crap Swedish teams with Emilio, who was the guy who also famously got VAC banned.
That was the thing as well. Yeah, he got banned. And so did Emilio, blah blah blah. But anyway, the thing is, to be fair, it's an old VAC ban, right? So I'm just
okay.
He got it around about the same time as Emilio got VAC'd.
Okay, but does that affect his ability to be like a coach at a major or something?
Well, it's the thing. So now it gets more interesting because it hasn't been determined what the VAC ban's in. Because it was never a big deal. It wasn't like Emilio, where it was a player and the nature in which it happened. It was inarguable that it was in CSGO. There's no verifying whether this is, because of the way the VAC bans show up on your profile, there's no way of verifying if it's a CSGO ban or a CSS ban or a 1.6 ban or Team Fortress 2 ban or whatever. But it's all gone a bit quiet on the Western front. Kinguin haven't released a statement about it yet. And no one said anything about it. Now,
I mean, it'd be nice if Valve could let us know what game people are fucking banned in, so we don't have that whole thing with the simple thing as well. Like, was it 1.6? Was it CSGO?
Well, that's definitely that is a factor. But here's the thing. So, the thing I wanted to ask you about is, if we're now living in a time where we're saying, okay, well, you were involved in match fixing, which undermines the integrity of the game, so you can't be a coach for an N18. Do we then have to extend that logic and be like, well, you are you have directly been involved in cheating in this game, provided we can prove it's a CSGO VAC ban, then you can't be a coach for this team. And if we do extend that logic, is it fair? Like, does it bother? Like, would it bother you, for instance?
See, the problem I have with actually banning the guy because he as a player was banned, as in ban him from being a coach, is that here's the issue. Usually why you have extra things placed on if you do a crime where you can't then benefit from the crime and write a book about it and make loads of money off it, etc., is the idea that you profit from your crime. But the problem is, if you're the coach, you're not really profiting from your crime. You're profiting from something totally separate, which is that you also can be a good coach. It's not like being banned then made you become an awesome coach. The follow-on doesn't really work there. So I'm not sure it works like that. And then secondly, actually similar to the problem with people like the banned players like Steel and Dazed, is they can probably still do 90% of a coach's job, as in just practice with the team and do strats, without ever having to appear on a Valve stage and be an official coach. So you also logistically probably can't stop someone doing it. Now, the problem here is, like you mentioned, Kinguin had made such a big deal about the fact that he literally was going to be the first in-game leader who was the coach. So if that's true, and then you get banned, then yeah, the team's probably fucked because you can't stand behind him. So this is the first case I've seen where it probably really would matter. With the other ones, most of those guys don't say that much stood behind anyway,
So what do you think should be done? Do Valve need to conduct an investigation? Does a statement need to be put out? I mean, this is an interesting issue here because, to use an analogy, which I know you're fond of, and I'm trying to use more of them, especially on this show. I don't want to get outdone by the likes of you. So Imagine if you were a trainer and you trained elite level athletes, but you yourself, when you were an athlete, had been doping your tits off, perhaps literally, and you fucking, you are now in a position where you're training and priming the next generation of athlete. I guess therefore the assumption could be you could say to that athlete, you know what I used to use? I used to use this. You'll fucking love this. Bit of juice, there you go. Inject them in the ass, and bada bing, bada boom, and they're away. And don't worry, I know how the testing system works. I know how I got caught. I can help you evade the ban. And I imagine, without looking into this, I'm pretty sure in athletics, if you're caught being involved in doping in any way, shape, or form, you're not going to be allowed to train young athletes either. Your ban is going to extend to that. So with that analogy in mind, do you feel Valve needs to apply some consistency here?
I mean, in that particular case, I can see there is a reasoning to it. It's just in this particular case, I don't think there really would be that big a deal. As long as the Deleto guy isn't ever going to play again, I'm not really sure it should be that big an issue. And also, just knowing Valve, unless someone makes a really big stink about this, they don't seem that proactive. They probably don't even know about this existing, so they probably won't do anything.
Yeah, I think it would be a shame because clearly it's working, and I definitely wouldn't want anything to harm Kinguin. But I can imagine there's a bunch of people right now who've been told you can't be coaches, and it was like they were involved in one incident of match fixing, and they're like, this guy fucking cheated. We have no idea of knowing when he cheated because of the nature of VAC and the nature of Valve communications. Could have been in tournaments, could have been anything. Could have been a bit of harmless fun at 2 a.m. Fun. Who knows? But he's now going to be coaching what will probably is going to become an elite level team and getting paid a salary to do so. Is that a problem? So, I mean, it's certainly a discussion that needs to be had, I think, one way or the other. And again, just to bring it up again, because this is my soapbox I like to get on, this is why Valve needs some sort of league commissioner and some sort of community guy who communicates. Like you say, what game was it? When did they get banned? What does it mean? How do you feel? What tournaments can they go to? What roles can they fulfill? Every time something like this comes up, there should just be a guy saying, not like Riot, not like nothing to see here, using the thing from Men in Black so you fucking forget about anything bad that they've ever done. Just talking, openly like, okay, well, yeah, that is a problem. We'll look into it and we'll put something out in the public domain so everybody knows where they stand. It would be a shame. It would be a shame if this sort of fucked up what's been a nice upward trajectory for Kinguin. But to be honest, I know enough about this business to know that if it doesn't get addressed, some of the bigger orgs and some of the big name players, they'll start pushing to get it addressed, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's what I think will happen. Anyway, so that's Kinguin. They had a good time. Let's talk about who sort of crashed out in the groups. Sure, we'll talk a little bit about Liquid, shall we? Do you want to?
Sure.
You like a bit of Liquid. So they came in. They had a real tough time. They did have a group of death, right? Yeah, exactly. I was in the Razer Lounge, which all the Team Liquid players are in there. I think they're obviously sponsored by Razer, so they were hanging out there the entire time. All of the Team Liquid squads, all of the players, all of the management. We were all watching the games, and it was just like, yeah, this is really going to be really hard for them. Fnatic, it wasn't comprehensive. They took 9 rounds on Dust 2 against Fnatic, but whatever. And then they go into a series against NIP. And it was interesting. We brought the stat up on stream. It was like in the last 3 times they'd played NIP, they got a total of 5 rounds. So I guess there's an argument for forward progress because they went 16-6 on Dust 2 and 16-10 on Cash. Looked for a little while like there might be a comeback coming, but it didn't. I don't know if you watched any of these games, but just a few thoughts about Team Liquid, whether they're heading in the right direction, whether maybe they need to make some more changes, or whether they can become a high-level NA team.
The problem with Liquid, because they're one of the NA teams I've watched more, mainly because they've been to a few tournaments, and I've watched a few of the games when they were online, because I've always been interested in players like Nitro. He was always touted as like a next NA star, etc. The problem their team has is it looks like they have no clue what the roles are in their team. Like the skilled players in the team, okay, so like Nitro clearly has skills, but the way he plays is like, he's just a bit of a beta. He doesn't really he doesn't commit to the team concept. He doesn't really play that aggressively. He just kind of hangs back and tries to get kills. Fugly, I think, is a pretty good player. I actually think overall he has the most impact. He's a good player. I'm impressed by him in general. Adren, I mean, I've said this a million times. He just seems to have a really bad time as the in-game leader, and his individual game especially has really dropped off a cliff. So he has his big problems every European tournament. That hasn't changed now. Elige is like the young guy who they brought in not that long ago when they kicked out Nafly. And he's like, I mean, he's like what you'd expect from a really young player. Like he's kind of like a mini Kirby. He has like one crazy game and you're like, oh, this is interesting. And then he'll have like two that are just like, it's a bit underwhelming. Like, is he just going to choke all the time? So the problem with their team overall is, on paper, they have enough firepower where they could go against some of these European teams, but they never really have that firepower when they get into the server. Because aside from Fugly, I don't think the rest are using their skills the right way, or they're too nervous, or it's just too much for them. Adren's playing poorly every time, and then tactically, like I said, they don't have a whole lot there. So they're not a team that I have a lot of hopes for in terms of an NA team as they stand right now. I think they'd either need a roster change, or a roster change and replace the in-game leader or something. I think it has to be something like that if they're going to change their fortunes. Yeah, obviously, a tournament like this, to even get out of the group, you need to be like potentially a top 6 team in the world. So that's not going to happen. But I mean, they could be a top 10 team in the world if they just fix things up a little bit.
Well, I mean, I just to point out one statistic, FlowSick managed a grand total of 35 frags at the tournament.
Yeah, he's shit, by the way. Like, I don't know why they replaced Daps, who wasn't good either, by the way. But the difference with Daps is he used to be their in-game leader at one point in time. So he actually had a little bit of nous about him. He understood, like, roles within the game. FlowSick is just not a very good player. Like, that's it. So I don't know why that was the person they chose to come in. What they really should get on their team, if they could get one, is like an entry fragger, like just a pure entry fragger who would make some of the tactics work. Then maybe they could make use of the skills of the others,
Yeah, I agree with you. They really did seem to be directionless at times. Like the strats they were executing were sloppy. The rotates were slow. The positioning, like there was times when they would see one of their own teammates run into the screen and they turn and start spraying at them, and you'd be like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, how can you not know? Like, how can you be?" So I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's communication, but there was lots of real bad mistakes where they would just, basic stuff that a top team shouldn't be doing. So I definitely agree they've got a leadership issue. And FlowSick, for me, was really, really poor. I mean, really, really poor.
The problem they have as well is it's one thing if you're like at your first big tournament, but we've actually seen this team at a couple of European tournaments. Like back when they had Daps, they went to the first FACEIT one, came last place. Then when they actually had FlowSick, they came to that Gfinity. I think it was Spring Masters 2, the one where it was all the best of 2 formats. And okay, not a whole lot there. I think they maybe took a map off someone decent. I think it was like Navi or someone they took a map off. But okay, aside from that, they finished in last place again. So, it's not like they've never had any opportunities. So to me, once you've had the chances and you've run you kind of pressed play a few times and run the variables, you have to change something at that point in time. Like, it's not just going to magically improve for no reason. And obviously, you have to remember, they did not make it to ESL, ESEA. They weren't even a top 4 team in NA. So if they can't even get to top 4 in that league, I mean, that just shows systematically there's something wrong in the team.
Okay, so we can move on to Na'Vi now. I think that's probably, I'm trying to do it in some sort of rough semblance of order of talking points. So Na'Vi, as we said, they managed to overcome Kinguin earlier. In general, they had a very good day at the office. They cemented their position, I think, as arguably the best overpass team in the world. 16-12 against Virtus.Pro, looking really comfortable on that map. Then it was 16-6 against Kinguin. They just got this sort of understanding of how to play that particular map that very few teams seem to have at the moment. They went head to head on against TSM. TSM removed Overpass from them. Now, what was interesting was Na'Vi were able to really come out the traps, just all guns blazing. 16-6 on Mirage against TSM. And I was thinking to myself, well, this is TSM. It's been a bit too soon for them this tournament. They'll be dangerous at the next. But Na'Vi have just been on a ridiculous run. They've come off the back of an ESWC win. And then, I don't know what happened. It's like Na'Vi just switched off. They lose 16-5 on Train, a map we know they can play well, and a map that inherently, just because of how it's structured, the scoreline should always be competitive. Getting beat 16-5 on Train shouldn't really happen. You know, it just shouldn't. Something's gone wrong. TSM were able to take 5 T rounds as well. They were on the T half in the second half. So first half 11-4, you think anything can happen, but yeah, Na'Vi were only able to get 1 CT round on Train, which I think was an eco. I think they lost the pistol, ecoed them, then TSM ecoed them and won out. So. Yeah. Not the Na'Vi we used to seeing. Then Dust 2, and we've talked a lot about Na'Vi on Dust 2 and their Jekyll and Hyde shit that's going on, where it's like, they were brilliant on it. It's Guardian's playground. He should be able to do anything he wants on that map. Then they were like, oh, we've lost to Fnatic 16-12, so we're bad on this map now, so we're not going to play it. They, for a time, started banning it. Then they started slowly reintroducing it. They had some great results on it recently, including at ESWC. And then they get 16-5 by TSM. So first of all, actually, I guess I'll pick your brain about that veto against TSM, Mirage Train and Dust 2. Did Na'Vi do their homework there? I'll actually tell you how it went. So Na'Vi removed Cash, TSM removed Cobble, Na'Vi picked Mirage, TSM picked Train, then Na'Vi took away Inferno. Again, crisis of confidence after they'd lost the Kinguin on it. Yeah. TSM removed Overpass. So understand that Na'Vi could have picked Overpass at this in this series. That's
the mistake there. Even before, like, it's okay after the series to be like, yeah, don't do that. Now it'll sound weird because obviously they won Mirage, so that sounds like what? Yeah. Why would you tell them to remove that? Here's the thing. On paper, I understand Na'Vi's logic. All 3 of these maps, they like them all. Okay, cool. We'll play these 3 maps. The problem is they could have had Overpass as the first one. So if I were them, I would have gone for that. Especially because I don't think that TSM would have actually banned Mirage there. I think TSM would have removed something else. Maybe they'd have removed Train. So then you might have actually had a series that was like Overpass, Dust 2, Mirage the third map, which I actually think you have a slightly better chance on, you know. Because the problem here was Na'Vi was banking on the fact that they're going to win Train. And we haven't seen much of TSM on Train, but they're clearly very good on it. It's one of those times where you just haven't seen enough of them, but it turns out they're actually sick on it. So unfortunately, once you get past the pick ban, once it's set in place, I don't think you can ask for much more than Na'Vi here because, okay, maybe Dust 2 should have been more competitive, but TSM also just were fucking insane from like that point in the tournament onwards. So from like map 2 onwards, they just never stopped for the rest of the whole tournament. And when you have a lineup as sick as TSM's is, you're going to have these CT halves that are just complete brick walls because they have so many skilled players on their team. They're just unreal.
Yeah.
So I feel like actually Na'Vi kind of got fucked a bit like I was talking about VP before. Again, it feels like they didn't do much in this tournament, but actually they did. They won a map off the team that won the tournament. They got to the semis. Yeah, they still had a good tournament.
Oh, they did. They definitely had a good tournament. I mean, Na'Vi was super disappointed. I caught Guardian very briefly at the end. He was like, you know, we don't know what happened here. So I'm gonna speculate a little bit. First thing, because we always get criticized. All you ever do is say players are shit on this show. I do want to say, Zeus. I thought, like, in terms of his fragging and some of the big rounds he had, I haven't seen Zeus play this well in a long, long time. This was like classic 1.6 Zeus, where he was the captain, but also would have these huge decisive rounds for his team. There was one moment where he, on Mirage in particular, he turned an entire round on its head. He like pushed behind TSM, got 2 kills with a CZ, and then picked up a rifle. Pretty much won him the round right there when they were in trouble on the B site. But just in general, I thought he played really, really well. Also as well, Edward. Like, you keep Zeus, because obviously he's the in-game leader. He's a fantastic captain. Gets away with having the style that not a lot of captains do, as in he'll call a timeout if something's not going well, and he reads his team the fucking riot act. Like, just, this is shit. You need to change. You need to change. Sort it out. You can see him visibly shouting at his players, but no one seems to mind, almost as if people from that part of the world weren't as sensitive as us. Who knew? Anyway, but Edward, right now, for the longest time, I had this theory in the back of my brain that eventually people will realize Edward is just a beard. That's all he is. And they will replace him with Simple, and they will create a super team. That's what I thought was going to happen in 2016. Okay. But I thought Edward was really good this tournament as well. And in this series, it suddenly clicked and made sense to me why he's in the lineup. So I don't know.
The problem is the one guy who wasn't that good in this tournament was actually Guardian. And the thing is, Na'Vi as a team have been sick the last few months. Like they have some insane run. Like the last 5 tournaments are all top 4s, and they're making finals. They're winning tournaments. The problem is, it's not only Na'Vi was at their best, but also Guardian has been in like the best form of his career in CSGO. He's had a consistent form of tournaments. Whereas actually, ESWC, he was beasting right up until the final. Then he like slowed right down in those games that they were back and forth for Cloud9. And at this tournament, he didn't have many maps where he was super sick, actually. He really went to shit in the maps they lost to TSM. So, unfortunately, listen, his team's still good enough that they have a chance. This team can still be very good, but this is supposed to be Guardian's time to be like a top 5 player in the whole world. You know, I think most people would have him at that kind of ranking. So, if you're a top 5 player in the world, you can't really just go missing for half a big tournament like this, because this is where your team might be in the final if you'd done that.
If we're talking about people going missing, you've got to point that finger at Flamey. Right, now, I don't want to be that guy, and I know you beefed with him on Twitter before, and sure, he looks like a human beasting, but let's just be fucking real for like 2 minutes. He had a ridiculous tournament with like ESWC.
It's probably the MVP.
Good. Yeah, right? But he came into this and he was fucking terrible. I mean, really, really poor in a way that to go from one tournament where you're playing immense and then to the next tournament to play that bad. I literally can't think in CSGO where I've seen that sort of disparity from one tournament to the next. It was unbelievable. So I watched different players.
Think that just shows you the quality that in a weird way, that shows you how good Na'Vi is as a team. Because basically their 2 best players both had like below par tournaments, and they still made the top 4 and won a map off the team that were the champions. So you can see, if the next tournament they don't have that kind of play, they're going to be in the final again. You know, they're going to be a top 3 team like they are.
Yeah, but exactly. But my concern now would be, what if the good Flamey was the aberration? What if that was the blip?
I don't think so, because it's been so many tournaments in a row that it's been good. I mean, he's never been quite as good, I don't think, as he was at ESWC in all the other tournaments. But even so, he's never been this bad, put it that way. So I would say this is the blip. I don't think this will continue. I think they'll be better next tournament.
Okay, so we can now do with an RV talk. Na'Vi did have a good tournament. Might not look like it. Right, now, Thorin, are you ready for tears?
Okay.
Are you ready to cry? Because we are going to talk about Fnatic now.
You mean that team that ruined all the dreams of the NIP fans? Love that team, mate. Love it.
Well, let's talk about it. So, they had it was a pretty tough group, but it should be easy for the likes of Fnatic. They dropped 9 rounds against Liquid on Dust 2. They're just warming up. It's okay. Nothing to see here. Then they go up against TSM, who, of course, have this ridiculous record against them. It's on Overpass, though, and again, it's a map that lends itself to being, it should be close games, right?
So that should have been a 50-50, you would have thought, because it's not like TSM are the gods of that map. They're decent on it. The problem is both of them are decent on it. I think that's why it ended up on that map. It's the map that both agreed, hey, we both think we have a chance on. But it definitely shouldn't have been like, it wasn't, even though TSM's beating Fnatic, that wasn't a clear cut, like TSM will definitely win Overpass, That should have been a game. It was to a degree. Just not that much.
It started out pretty close, and I say that, like very early on. And then it was like, okay, for some reason, TSM just have this godlike CT side now. So it's 12-3 at halftime. Fnatic start coming back into it, but you can't have 12-3 halves at this level. You just can't. But even against teams that you're superior to, you've given them too much. you know, you can give away like 3 rounds to a rate of 1 and still win. You know, so it was starting to get close, but 16-10. Now, this is when I realized that something was very, very wrong here. JW 5 for 23. We talked about this stat the entire tournament. 5 for 23. Now,
I mean, you will never see a performance like that from him in his whole career, probably again, ever.
No,
and never before.
I agree, but you know, I know you've been a big proponent of JW in the past. This is the kind of performance, I don't know, had an Exist, had a Forest, had it, you'd be roasting them over hot.
No, he was absolute shit. Like, actually, I thought in this whole tournament he had his problems. It feels like he's one of the guys where that's the reason why. It sounds weird. Fnatic still makes the finals. Like, this is one of the few times they haven't made the final. They still win tournaments, but he's been one of the players who's been absent in some of the runs that they make to finals and winning titles, you know. Like, actually, I think the 2 guys overall who've suffered the most in the last 3 to 4 months is JW and Crims. Now, Crims is his role's never is gonna have to be the star anyway, so he can still get away with it sometimes, still contribute. But JW's whole style is based on that like impact style. It's high economy as well, buying ops all the time. That if he has a shit game, it's going to be a super shit game, and it's going to be really dangerous to Fnatic, you know. So yeah, this went really badly.
Sorry, I've just been told apparently my camera's going to shit. I don't know why. But just put up with blurry, pixelated Rich for a minute, guys. I'm sure it'll be fixed very soon. Anyway, just to, provided the sound's still okay, just to come back to that point, what was evident as well, right at the end of that game, was that there was a lot of high emotions, and Flusher picked up his keyboard and smashed it. Which I've never seen.
He lifted his keyboard this time.
I did that joke. It's good to know. Great minds think alike. I did do it on stream. I said, "Oh, he lifted his keyboard for a change instead of his mouse," which of course is definitely what was going on there. Because far be it from us to question anyone's legitimacy, but they were really upset. And I think Semler asked Olaf about it, and Olaf was like, "Oh yeah, that's just normal." But can you think of a time you've seen Fnatic like that? I can't.
No, the only one is obviously when Olaf M punched the desk when they lost to TSM. But even that was actually understandable because it was like they'd lost to TSM again after they'd just beaten them, and you know that was frustration. That was normal. The difference is in this particular situation, Flusher's like the one player, especially who doesn't rage out as well. Like that's the guy you wouldn't expect it from. And the thing is, with Olaf, you even forgive it because he's kind of like the alpha male of the team. You know, he's like the confidence guy who's like, you know, he's the carry player. You know, it's all on him to win the game. So okay, you can understand when that guy gets mad. The thing is, the rest of their team, one of the things I've always lauded about their team is they seem so calm under pressure. Like actually, usually they're like, okay, I understand why we lost. Like our communication wasn't good enough, or listen, I didn't help you out here. The idea that they would rage is, I mean, it's a sign of the fact that they can't handle the fact that a team in the world repeatedly beats them.
Yeah, but not only that though. There was the issue that you know it wasn't just like localized to one guy. It was like it wasn't just Flusher got upset, Pronax got upset. Everyone was getting upset with each other. They were pure raging. It wasn't just necessarily about the TSM thing. I think, like I can't remember who it was, but someone on the casting team said like as well. They were like. Usually they all hang out after a defeat, but they didn't do that this time. There was just tempers were too heated, it was too hot, so they backed out. Now I do want to point out: is there a coincidence that the guy who massively underperforms in that game and goes 5 for 23 is the same guy that there's all these rumors and speculation about might be leaving the team and. Has definitely, again, I've verified that, has had offers to join NIP. Should he ever leave Fnatic? Should he want to? Should we read too much into this? Is this speculation now starting to break apart the Fnatic machine?
The thing is, I actually don't think that Like the reason why I think he hasn't left and why no one's left of any of the players of Fnatic who might have had these offers, etc., is because clearly it is still a good thing. They still do. I mean, they won the two tournaments ago. They won that tournament, ESL, ESEA. They still usually, I mean, they make the top 4 of every tournament. They usually make the final at worst. So there is still so much success that I don't think it's really like a definite thing yet. But it has to be there in the back of people's minds that, okay, I'm not going to leave now. Things are going really well. Still, the team still works great. I've still got great teammates. But eventually, one day, if this team doesn't win anymore, if we start to get round of 8 finishes, if we start to get wrecked 16-4 on maps, hey, maybe one day I am just going to leave. And maybe that's even kind of understood. Like maybe there is offers, but they're like, hey, stay in our team. We can pay you this, like stick with us for 6 more months, whatever. But even that holds in the back of your mind kind of like, yeah, but one day, maybe you will leave. So I don't know, maybe it is a factor. It obviously isn't great if you're a teammate and you hear that like, oh, someone's even considering leaving.
Yeah, no, it definitely isn't. Definitely isn't. And, I was worried. I mean, Olaf played well again. I mean, that's become sort of par for the course. But, you need Olaf and JW. You've got to have
That's their problem. I made this point in my article about Olaf M, right?
I read that. Very good, by the way.
You can't just take for granted, like, oh, well, he's the best team. Yeah, but he does play for the best team. No, it's the other way around. That's part of the reason why they're still the best team. They're not even like their best peak form. What happens is they have all these series where they should be like, right, you're off now. You lost map 1, hard map 2. And he just pulls them out of the fire every time. So if anything, he's like the ultimate band-aid right now, who's saving their asses, and he did it again this tournament. He pretty much got them into that semi-final where, hey, they might have got out in the fucking group stage. This is Fnatic we're talking about here. So I think what's weird is if I'm JW, you have to acknowledge, mate, that this Olaf guy's been making you not look shit in the sense that when you've had all these bad performances, he's still getting your team to the next round where you might then be able to have a good map later on in the tournament, So yeah, it's definitely a problem. And you also cannot rely on that. Like if you're Fnatic, you can't be like, oh, what we'll do is things are working out okay. We'll just hope that guy keeps playing in God mode every now and then and saving us. Because one day that's not going to be the case. People don't stay in this sort of form for a year,
Yeah. So let's do the part of Fnatic's tournament I know you're going to enjoy. The 2-0 over NiP. Just quickly, actually, while we're here, mate. Like Fnatic and SK Gaming used to be El Clasico.
Yeah.
I still think I came up with that, by the way. But I don't know if I'm misremembering history. But I honestly believe. I kind of feel like R.Lewis from Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he's like talking. Okay. What joke is it he's meant to have come up with? Is it the mother of or something? The mother of all? Oh, no, there's something from hell. That's it. So he said, he claims.
Girlfriend from hell or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. He claims he's the first person to ever say, like, the talk show from hell. The CS tournament from hell. He reckons he's the guy who said that first. Now, much like my namesake, I am convinced I am the first guy that ever called Fnatic SK El Clasico. I am fucking convinced about that. So if someone can just prove that I'm not, so I can lose that delusion, otherwise it's going to haunt me and torment me. But anyway, the question I wanted to ask is, with SK Gaming, they've got that Danish team and organization's a bit up in the air at the moment. We don't really know what's going on, and it's never going to be competitive. Do we need to change it in CSGO and something else has to be El Clasico, or for the sake of esports tradition, esports history, something I know you care a lot about, must it always be El Clasico, even though one team is really, really shit in comparison to the other right now?
The problem is, it definitely shouldn't be that SK versus Fnatic's El Clasico, because obviously it doesn't make any sense in terms of the players playing now. None of the players are carryovers from those. The problem is, there isn't an obvious El Clasico in CSGO. Like, I would have said the obvious one would be, I guess, NiP EnVyUs, because at least they had like a whole bunch of the former Very Games players, and then NiP still obviously has most of their players. NiP Fnatic's not bad, but the problem is, during this era of Fnatic being super good, like, two of their better players weren't in the old ones that used to play against NiP, and even then the older teams used to play, they were kind of the underdogs to NiP. So I don't think there's an obvious one right now in CSGO. Like, if anything, I hope one day we could call like TSM Fnatic the El Clasico. If they both stay really top teams for the next 8 months, maybe that'll be the one where they're going back and forth. I mean, I guess maybe you could have called EnVy Fnatic when they were like both the clear top two teams. That's the problem. There isn't one that's like an obvious one where every fan can point and go, that's the two teams that you always want to see play. So
people in the chat saying El Clasico It's already Nip versus Ferry Games. I'm not having that. The org doesn't fucking
Yeah,
exist.
but Very Games doesn't exist anymore and has been like split into two for the last year.
Like even if that was true, with like a non-existent, like does El Clasico have to die with Very Games? Like fuck that shit. That's not fair. So we need to get to the heart of it. I think right now, here's the thing: it'll drive you nuts. Like if Fnatic TSM was El Clasico, that again means that TSM will always be associated with something great, and their fans will always be able to revel in that, and that'll keep you up at night, mate.
The thing is, I don't mind TSM CSGO team being brilliant. The only
they're
problem
great. I love them.
Is that unfortunately the fucking timing does make it look to idiots like they only won once TSM picked it. I guess Reginald knew it. He was like, "Shut up, shut your fucking mouth."
Reginald is a CS genius. He definitely didn't pick up that team just to annoy Odie. Definitely didn't do that, mate. Well, why would he? He's a genius. So, anyway, let's analyze the series briefly. So. You had a 2-0 to Fnatic. It was both 16-14 on both maps, Train and Mirage.
Yep.
I have to say that it was the usual suspects for Nip. Get Right was good. Forest actually stepped up. This tournament was pretty good. R.Lewis looking a lot more like his usual self. He was probably the closest thing they had to a godlike player, but there was absolutely nothing they could do across the two maps to contain Olofmeister. He was just immense. Even JW wasn't particularly poor in this series. But it was just a case of Olofmeister was just literally going wherever he wanted on the map. As T, getting kills. As CT, he would kill two of them before they'd even really got to grips with what the setup was. And then Flusher would come in and mop up. And it was just comprehensive. But it's got to be said, 16-14, pretty close. So
I hate to use the term should, because people think should means like it definitely would have happened and what a fluke that it didn't. But I mean should as in like the way this game played out, Nip wins this particular series themselves 2-0 or it's a third map in, I'm not joking, probably like 85% of cases, maybe even more, because the second map, that would almost certainly have been a Nip win if Olofmeister wasn't just in absolute God mode the whole time. And not only that, the worst sort of a God mode. What's funny is if you actually watch the POV back, you won't see that many highlight rounds, right? He doesn't have that many rounds where he gets 3 kills or 4. What happens is it's the worst sort to play against. If someone has a game, right, where they have like 25 kills, but the difference is they have 2 or 3 rounds where they ace you. That's actually better than what Olofem did here. He's getting 2 rounds kills like every round. So that means every round, right, we're at a deficit already. He's opened a site already. He's got the first kill onto the first guy running into that already. You already like at a disadvantage every single fucking round. So yeah, the game impact he's having is absolutely out of this world. So as a result, I actually feel for Nip on that map. Like that probably should have been 3 games at least in that series. So nothing you can do in that one. It was above and beyond the performance even the star player should have. Map 1, that was a bit more like back and forth. Maybe they would have lost that anyway, but they should have at least got a third map in this series, I think.
I mean, it was. We honestly thought we were going to see 40 on Train. Olaf only got to 39, but we honestly
in regulation.
In regulation. So we thought we were going to see a 40 bomb, and he just fell short. But again, there is, for me at least, no doubt. Right now, he is the best player, hands down, in the world, most valuable player, literally worth his weight in gold. It's unbelievable.
And he does it in a game where if he wins it, the series is won. So let's say it goes to map 3. Well, who knows? It's shaky as fuck at that point. You could lose at that point. So he wins when you need it the most as well. So, no one else can do that at the moment. There's really great players, but even they, like we just been talking about Guardian, he just took some games off in this tournament. It was like, I'm just going to be an okay player again. All of them has to do this. Otherwise, Fnatic's going out in group stages and having all sorts of problems,
Yeah.
And you have to remember, they would have gone out in last place at ESEA if he didn't like match fucking Cajun B going ham when TSM played him in that last game in the group stage.
That game was just, what was it, like 36 frags for Cajun B?
Like
and It's ridiculous.
So again, these are 2 tournaments where their placing is incredibly elevated, purely because one guy was just like, the other team is not allowed to win.
Yeah.
No, a good performance from Nip overall, much improved over the last few tournaments.
Well, that said, I mean, I don't. He had a poor series, but again, it comes back to that thing how like statistics are misleading. I'd hate to have to play as an entry fragger against Fnatic. I'd hate to do it. Because we've talked about in the past how they have these godlike CT sides. We know they're always very good. Their setups are immense. They've got great reactions themselves. So having that responsibility put on your shoulders is really tough. But Freiburg didn't stand out in this tournament, considering this series, considering he's meant to be the point man.
It's also tough if you're in NIP though, because listen, if I'm in like TSM, if I'm in C9, when I go into the site, there's fucking coordinated smokes coming over. A guy's getting flashed on my left, so I only look to my right. In NIP, it's like, go on then, run into the site. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, you run in first, and then I'll kill the guy who kills you. Oh, cheers. Like, it's like fucking trench warfare or something. Like, go over next wave. But the others just got butchered. Go on over, you coward. I'll shoot you in the back.
Yeah, blowing the whistle. He's there. I'll be right behind you, mate. Beep, 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 beep. Fucking Blackadder. Yeah, it's unreal.
You don't realize it was a miracle that it used to work, that old style they had. Like, that's why everyone. Here's the thing: people deservedly in the early days thought Freiburg was a boss because he used to just go to the same spot and have to walk into a site where they knew he was coming and kill a guy. So that's not going to work forever. And his problem is he suffers the most from the fact NIP's not a very tactical team now and don't have a lot of in-depth executes. So he's not very good at the moment, but there's also some context that you have to add in. You can't just be like when Fox was shit and we're like, he's shit, get him out the team. It's not the same.
Yeah. But I mean, you're not going to stick the knife in. We feel that this is the NIP lineup.
It's just the same thing with NIP, man. I mean, put it this way. This is where NIP had a really good performance. Everything went right for them, right? Okay, they can't do anything about the all-off performance on Train, but aside from that, everything went right, and they still lost close game to TSM, close game to Fnatic, out of the tournament, don't make top 4. So again, if this is like a good performance, what hope is there? A good performance is supposed to make the finals, make a top 4, beat a big team. At the moment, that doesn't happen. I mean, when I was doing my latest roundup of the teams for the rankings, I looked over which best of 3 wins NIP's had in the last 3 months, and it's a joke, mate. They've beaten like Mouse Sports, Dignitas, and I think maybe VP or something. That's like the 3 teams they've beaten in the last 3 months who are top teams in best of 3s. They've had nothing else. So even when they've made like a top 4, it's kind of been one of those top 4s where it's like, oh, that was an event where you only had a best of 1 group stage to get to a top 4. You know, it's that sort of a thing. They're not getting big wins over good teams anymore. So there's something wrong there.
Okay, well, I got the impression I only had time to hang out with them very briefly. It was quite the schedule. And they were pretty much intimating, just repeating what Heaton had said, that we move on to, that's going to be the side that moves into the major. They're not going to change it. There's definitely not going to be any roster swaps. They're going to go to a major with that team. But they said it in such a way, and this might just be me, I'm not psychic or anything, all right? So I could be totally wrong. But no, I kind of got the feeling that, like, that major might be a last hurrah.
Oh, it is. I mean, you have to realize the genius of it is the timing is around when last year they were coming in poor form to the major and they flukily won it. And that kept them alive on life support for the next 2 months when they did terribly. Here's the problem. That's not going to happen this time. Like, all those obnoxious NIP fans who keep saying, yeah, but they must be the best team because they've made the final of every major. That's what's great about this lineup, because they're going to go to this major and they won't be in the final on the last day. That's not even debatable. It's not going to happen. If it's not TM Fnatic, if it's not TSM, it's going to be Na'Vi. It's going to be Cloud9. There's too many good teams at the moment. It's just not going to happen for them.
What if they do make it to the final, Duncan?
That definitely won't happen, mate.
Yeah, but what if?
Tune in to fucking By the Numbers CSGO on Wednesday and see what I say.
No, but I mean, I feel there needs to be we got to raise the stakes here.
Okay, if they do make the final, I'll I don't have a NIP jersey. That's a problem. So what should I do? Do something like tweet something like.
It's plenty of time before the major, mate. I can get you a NIP jersey.
Get me a NIP jersey then. Well, I mean, listen, wait till the majors happen because you might have to waste your time posting that, mate. So aside from that, but I'll do something like I'll tweet, "You're not all shit. Congrats," or something. I don't know. Tell the viewers. Someone come up with something interesting for me to do. I'm not doing something like chopping my own dick off or whatever retarded.
No, I mean, it's not the fucking Pain Olympics, mate. What the fuck, like? Shave that, though.
Okay, we'll do that then. I will shave my head bald if they make it to the final of the major.
Right.
There we go.
That's it. There's your fucking.
It's never going to happen, so I'm not worried, mate.
Yeah,
so.
I know, mate. There you go. So,
by the way, that's assuming they do take this lineup. If like JW and Olaf join tomorrow, that's not valid anymore.
Oh. But anyway, super unprofessional. You just do some Telly Savalas impressions. For the kids don't know who he is. But I've run out of beer and I need a fucking another one to get through the end of the show. But don't worry, we're going to be talking about Cloud9 next. That's why I want to drink, mate. So I'll be right back. Hold on.
He didn't even ask me a question. Like, if he asked me a question, I could answer. So I'll just make up something to talk about then. Let me see. Actually, if people want to know roughly what I think of some of these teams beyond what we've talked about now, I did my latest top 10 rankings. I think it was yesterday or the day before. It might be yesterday. So those are out there. So I've accounted for all this tournament here. Like, I think VP jumped over NIP, I think, by 1 slot. So I think NIP's down to like 7th, which is the lowest they've been. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just catching up on what you did or said. I'm reading the chat, and it's like cringe, sell out. What did you do? Just
told them to look at my top 10 teams in the world.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's a massive fucking sellout. Big cringe. I was gonna do the show ending with that actually, but we had to talk about Cloud9 first. So let's do it.
Okay.
So Cloud9, right? This is you could right. So just to contextualize it, ESL, ESCA Pro League, they win 2 best of ones, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, they won. They beat EnVyUs in a best of 1. They lost to VP in a best of 1. Then EnVyUs in a best of 3.
Yeah, that was it. Sorry. Yeah. So they beat EnVyUs twice. That was it. They won a best of 3, and then obviously, they go to the final and they lose. That's fine. That happens. Then ESWC, they go to the final again. It's arguably not a stronger field. They lose.
Beat EnVyUs again.
Yeah. They did beat EnVyUs again. Everyone was making excuses though, like the EnVyUs wins don't count. Oh, they're going to change their roster, mate. So everyone's like, yeah, fuck Cloud9. It doesn't really count. You're beating EnVyUs. It doesn't really count. EnVyUs, look, they're just running at you with P90s and Julies and stuff, mate. You beat them. Well done. Well done. I mean, forget the fact they're good enough to beat anyone with P90s and Julies anyway. But yeah, well done. So people took that away from them. They lose another final. They come here. Now, this was undoubtedly the strongest in terms of just depth of talent that was at this event. And they go through the tournament. They beat Kinguin, who we've established a no joke, beat Virtus.Pro, map off Na'Vi. They beat Na'Vi 16-14. Got to say, I watched that game and it should have gone to overtime. But still, who knows what would have happened. Yeah. But they won an eco to win it 16-14. So there's 2 ways of looking at that, actually. You can say Na'Vi fucked up or Cloud9 are godlike. It's up to you, really.
Yeah.
Guess it depends, what side of the Atlantic you're on. Now, here's what I will say, but this isn't to criticize anybody. I just want to be consistent. I said during ESL's tournament, and obviously I don't work for ESL and they don't hire me and I don't go to their events. If you can win like 2 best of 1s and be in a semi-final, your tournament's shit. I did say that.
Yeah.
I need to repeat that here, ultimately. So I guess it's FACEIT I'm offending rather than DreamHack. So, sorry, guys.
I mean, to be fair, all the rest of the DreamHack tour, by the way, Rich, has best of 1 group stage.
And I think it's success.
I'm not a fan of it myself either, but...
don't get me wrong. I fucking, love DreamHack. Yeah. Pay me that sweet money. And pretty much, I wouldn't even be hosting now if DreamHack hadn't took the gamble. Like when everyone else was like, "Oh, isn't he that like old dude who just says edgy things because he wants to be like Destiny or whatever?" Like they were the guys that were like, "Nah, we think he could probably host." I mean, other guys had to turn him down first to get to that stage, but they did invest in me, and I wouldn't have the career I have now if it wasn't for them. But yeah, best of 1s in the group stage, come the fuck on. Like we got to be better than this. Anyway, just to get it out of the way. So Cloud9 were fucking immense. They go up against Fnatic, and it's like I tweeted. I thought Thorin must think he's died and gone to hell.
Yeah,
I tweeted that because dude, it wasn't even fucking close on Mirage. Like,
Yeah.
Fnatic's map that they picked. And Cloud9 were just fucking... It was really weird, actually. Like Sean said, they specifically had watched how Fnatic play it, and they just knew how to neutralize Olaf in particular. Like, they just knew their setup. They knew what to do, put smokes down and push it. But they were just playing like fucking YOLO, and they fucking wrecked them. I mean, everyone was raving about Shroud in this series, but and Skadoodle as well, and rightly so. Rightly fucking so, because Shroud was... His rifling was on point. He was up there with anyone in Fnatic. Skadoodle, just incredible AWPing. Like we've established, JW was absent in this tournament, so best AWPer on the server in this series by a country mile. But I just want to give a massive fucking shout out to Nothing, who last few tournaments, it's like, you know how a team is only as strong as your weakest link. He elevated his level of performance to I think he's playing the best CSGO he's played. And it really told in this series. But yeah, so they wreck them 16-7.
Yep.
And then they're ahead on Train. They throw it. It goes to overtime. You think, here we go. It's happening. They were one round away from being, in the final. They're going to choke. And they see out an overtime, which again shows great evolution. So let's just talk about this series before we move on to the next point. Was this Fnatic imploding on themselves, or will you say something positive about Cloud9?
It was both. Here's the thing. On the Fnatic side of things, the whole tournament was bad. Sounds crazy because they made the top 4 of the tournament. So you're thinking, well, how can you get the top 4 not doing well? Well, just look at the tournament. There's the overpass game against TSM. Like we said, JW, 5 kills. When does that ever happen? Doesn't. So that was terrible. Then they had the series against NiP, where, like I just told you, NiP should have been the ones playing Cloud9 here. Fnatic shouldn't even be there. And so it's like you got a reprieve, you got through the semifinals, then your problem is, who did you run into? One of the hottest teams in the world right now. So Cloud9, I'll get onto them in a second, but essentially don't take anything away from them. Their performance probably would have won a series anyway, or at least would have gotten 3 maps, would have had a good chance, They would have still done very well. But Fnatic also was particularly weak. I remember they only won that game on Train against NiP because of the godlife, like 39 kills from Olaf M. In this series, Mirage wasn't even close. That's not even a map we even thought of as like a Cloud9 map. So if you're Fnatic, you think, well, we're going to win Mirage, definitely. Then Train is supposed to be the Cloud9 map. Fnatic's been good on it recently. Like, not that they're really good, they just hang with the other good teams. So you think, okay, they can hang around there. They did the comeback at the end, but Cloud9 obviously closed the whole series out. And crucially, they closed it out in a really close game, because before that, all the close games in general were the ones they were losing. They'd only won something like 2 close games when it goes to the last round, The rest, they'd lost like 2 or 3. So in their past finals, that had been the problem. Beating the best team in the world on two maps in a row without even having to go to 3 is big time. Like that's huge stuff. And also, listen, I'll give Nothing a lot of props in this series, above and beyond what you normally expect. Admittedly, he's the guy who in all the finals that they have goes missing. So it's not fixed yet, and I don't know if it ever will be. But hey, if you can get wins off Fnatic, I don't know what you have more to have to complain about, right? That's about the best you can hope for. Shroud is just like the Fnatic killer. Even though he's really good anyway, somehow he's even better every time he plays Fnatic. I don't know how that's possible. And Skadoodle, it's not even like he goes ham every time. He's just so consistent.
Yeah.
You just know he's going to get X amount of kills over and over and over. And so far, we haven't really had an AWPer who goes up against him, because Guardian wasn't like super duper sick in the ESWC finals. So at the moment, he's about to become like the best AWPer in the world if he keeps going.
Well, that was my next question. I was going to say to you, just in terms of pure AWPing ability, we've had JW drop off, we've had Kenny S drop off, and it's not to say they can't get back to where they were, but right now, just on current form, I sort of had Skadoodle maybe just slightly behind Guardian, just kind of based on tournament. Yeah,
same for me. Like basically, I don't think it's even debatable that the top 2 is Guardian and Skadoodle. The others, they're just too far behind. Like, for example, I think JW still could be a better player than Skadoodle if we average it over 6 months. But as an AWPer, Skadoodle's better than JW at the moment, especially because he can use it every round. He's not just like a flashy player. The problem is, Guardian, and up until this tournament, had been on such a sick heater of tournaments in a row where he was just a god, that I still think he's ahead of Skadoodle's. But it's there for Skadoodle to take. Like the next couple of tournaments, the next major, he could become the best AWPer in the world.
And I got to say as well, I mean, like perhaps a lot of people don't give too much credence to this sort of theory crafting. But they came into this tournament amid that whole Adderall scandal. which is Semphis doing an interview for those that have been living under a rock or are new to CSGO. He basically, their ex teammate, Semphis, who's now with Nihilum or Nihilum, whichever way you prefer to say it, he did an interview where basically saying Cloud9 were on Adderall at IEM Katowice. And this comes out just before they come into this tournament. And bizarrely, despite the fact that Adderall and beta blockers and God knows what else have been around for the longest period of time in esports, I've known multiple players that have used them in Halo, in StarCraft, in Counterstrike, in Call of Duty. I mean, you name it. All of a sudden, the community decides to take it seriously. And they were like, well, this completely invalidates all of Cloud9's achievements. They're all ripped to the tits on Adderall. They're all high. That's the only reason they're even making it to finals right now. Lots of backlash. Let's get drug testing in. Like, lots of people really putting them under pressure. Yet they came to this tournament under that cloud of scrutiny, and it did not faze them at all. It clearly didn't put them off. They were still really open with the crowd, open with the media. Like they were like, it just didn't put them on tilt at all. Whereas, you know, we've seen teams in the past that have negative things in the press go to tournaments, and it can affect them. It can really put them on tilt. So I got to give them credit for that as well. I just want to ask you while we're here, I know you did a video about it, but just a few thoughts about this whole Adderall thing.
Well, I mean, the thing is, what you do is you take some beta blockers with the Adderall, then you'll feel really calm under the pressure of knowing that you're on Adderall and everyone knows you're on Adderall ripped off your tits. And then problem is, though, sometimes the Adderall wears off after like 4 hours, say once you got to the final, and then nothing's like, I'm not really feeling it right now.
I used to have a friend who used to take, he used to call, I can't remember what he called it, he had some mad name for it. But anyway, just like he used to get so bored that what he used to take is he used to take a laxative and an Imodium, you know, like pills that stop diarrhea. He used to take them simultaneously to see which one would win. Like whether he'd shit himself and stuff. So beta blockers and, you know, Adderall, it's kind of, they're counterproductive. So I'm just saying. Is that what you're advocating here, Duncan?
No, but the thing is, the big problem with that whole scenario is that what's funny is, if anything, didn't that tournament that they supposedly ripped on Adderall was the one that was ESL1 Katowice, where they bombed out in the fucking group stage and they barely scraped the win that they did get over TSM. So if anything, that's proof that just taking Adderall, it's not like the fucking movie Limitless, guys. You don't just suddenly become like a genius. You get like a bit better if you're already a really good player. So if they were shit at that tournament, even if they were on Adderall, I'm pretty sure they'd be almost as good as they are now. And again, as I kind of joked there, Adderall doesn't somehow like remove all emotion and make you not afraid to play the best team in the world. Yeah. So that would be irrelevant. You'd still be playing TSM and Fnatic. So I think it's not really even an issue, except for the whole thing of like, should they be allowed and all that stuff. I don't think it had any impact on their tournament now.
Put it this way, all you need to know about how effective Adderall is that it was rife in the NA scene. And what have the NA scene ultimately achieved? It's like not a whole lot of much.
Here's the funny thing. You know, when people give the example of like, oh, well, everyone must be on Adderall then if NA players are, because it's like cycling, you know, where where like the top 15 riders supposedly were all on it. That's the problem. If it really was so godlike, everyone would be on it for competition reasons. But actually, in general, I don't think it's ever been as prevalent in the European scene, especially not where we have European lands and you have to be in Europe and no one's going to NA. Because at least if you were going to an NA tournament, you could at least buy it off for an NA player, you know? So as a result, I don't really think it's that big an issue. It's something that's already been known, and maybe it should be stopped. I don't know. It's up to other people for that stuff, but I don't think it's that big an issue.
I reckon the CEO on the board of the pharma company that made Adderall, he's going to fucking sue Semphis because he's like, we don't want to be associated with you shit players. Like, if Fnatic was out there saying, we're on Adderall, they'd be fucking, let's, we're in. We'll sign up for that endorsement deal. What's that? The NA scene? Nah, fuck this. It's time. Call the lawyers. It's time to set them on. But anyway, we get to the final. Cloud9 are playing TSM. Definitely Adderall free. Clean living. Never let it be said otherwise. And at this juncture, we're like, well, you know, they've overcome this huge mental hurdle in the form of beating Fnatic. Like, nobody thought they would do that. No, I mean, I predicted 2-0 to Fnatic. I said it was going to be super close, but I gave Fnatic the edge. They got to the final, and I've seen this a lot, actually. Do you know when like you've had to use so much adrenaline to and like just put so much into a win, and then you get to a final, like then you're fucking burnt out. You know, there's nothing left in the tank, and the final just plays out pretty much as you would expect it. And that was pretty much how it went down. Like I don't even think TSM needed to be that godlike. It just felt to me that like unfortunately Cloud9 had put so much into beating Fnatic. They weren't really able to give TSM a good match. I know it was 16-14 on Cash, but let's not forget that in itself was predicated on a pretty crazy comeback. You know, like it looked like at one point it was going to be like, I don't know, a 16-9 or something, and then they started getting the rounds, gets to 16-14. They have it cruelly snatched away on Cash, which was ultimately Cloud9's map, and a map
that's the problem. That's supposed to be the map they win there, you know. That's the thing. Here's the positive for Cloud9 for this tournament. They not only again beat world-class teams and got some scalps and got to a final, all great, but what is especially important is they added some new maps as well. The problem before was, okay, they were awesome on Cash, awesome on Dusty. We already knew that anyway, but now they've made it they're world-class on both these maps against top teams. Then they beat Na'Vi on Cobblestone. That's first of all, that's a Na'Vi map. That's not even a map that we've seen them play much. And it kind of validates their 16-14 win over Fnatic on that map, another strong team on that map. So there's another map they've got in their pool potentially. Then they beat Fnatic on Mirage. Again, another map that's not a Cloud9 map particularly, but now they're adding that in. Then they come into this final now. They play Cash. The problem here is in the final, it's like you're saying, Cash is the map they should have won. Not as in should have won, as in they played it.
But they've done it time and time again, Duncan. They fucking pick Cash. And you're like, okay, well, Cloud9 must be some god-tier team on Cash, capable of beating anyone. The amount of times I've seen them lose, like 16-13, 16-14. Do you remember we did that Gfinity when nothing dropped like 50 frags?
Yeah.
To get them a 16-14 win?
No, they lost that map. They lost in overtime.
They lost it 16-14. You're right. It's even with 50 fucking frags from nothing. 16-14. I just don't know. It's like, look, Sean Gares is obviously a great in-game leader. He's obviously a fucking wizard. He's obviously a fucking legend. All the things you want to say about him. Tactically, he's very good. He's clearly got a brain in his head. But I don't know about this whole Cash thing, man. It just seems like they're always super close to winning, but it's never close enough.
Here's the problem, right? And so, yeah, they had the Cobblestone, they had Mirage, they came close on Overpass in the final against Fnatic at ESL, SEA. So they've got some other maps there. That's a good sign, because when you have a deep enough map pool, you can become a top 3, top 4 team. The problem for Cloud9 is there's 2 factors I saw in this final. One, they choke in close games in finals. I mean, just look at the stats. They lose the majority of the close games in the finals. They're something like 2 for 3 in close games in finals. They're losing most of them. They've also gotten stomped in a couple of games in finals. They got wrecked on Cash with Fnatic. Na'Vi wrecked them on Inferno. They got wrecked on Mirage here. So you're getting also wrecked otherwise. So it's only close games that you even have a chance in. I think there's some choking going on there, basically. And then the second factor, and this is one that people aren't going to like, is that since most of these, of the 3 finals they've had, I think the closest they were to winning was actually ESL, ESEA, where 3 maps they could have won. They won one of them against Fnatic.
Yeah,
that one was the closest one, and that was the only final that was a day later. So they had a whole night to look over demos and prepare for Fnatic. Against the ESWC, and in this final, the final is on the same day as the semi-final. So there's barely any time for preparation. So basically, it takes the Sean Gares factor out of the team. And unfortunately, they have a good team, but take Sean Gares away and take his demo watching time where you can look at the spots people are going to play and try and anti-strat them. And they're not as good as teams like Fnatic, teams like TSM, teams like Na'Vi. They're not quite at that level. Now, give them the prep time, give them another day. They can make up some of the distance. Okay, they can get the series close or even win some of them. But actually, take away that prep, and I don't think they're as good. Now, there's very few teams in the world where that's the case. Like, the thing with teams like TSM and Fnatic is they can win on any type of day. The team can be very good with practice, with prep, without prep. That's a problem for Cloud9 I see at the moment. And not every tournament's going to be like this where you play on the same day. There's going to be some where you play the next day. But I think that's a fact. I think those 2 things that they have, it's noticeable to me that they're choking in the finals. They don't have that kind of, you don't even get the feeling in the final like, oh my God, they're doing this. How are they going to win? Like, oh, everything's going well. It's more like things are going really well. Oh, now they're starting to go really shit and no one's able to turn it around and no one's doing anything and there's no heroes, you know. So it's good and bad. Like, amazing to get to the 3 finals in a row. You can't fuck with that. That's like insane. Very few teams have ever done that. There's probably like 5 teams in CSGO history have made 3 big finals in a row. So that's legit. But there's some clear problems that these 3 finals have shown us.
Well, I'm glad you said that, though, because, right, so Gets to the end of the event, right, and we'll talk about TSM in a moment, but just while we're here on the Cloud9 train, and I had no idea. I go out, we get to the after party. It's pretty good. You know, it was actually it's the best Twitch after party I've been to. Because Twitch after parties, sorry Twitch, they're famously bad. All right, like I can't remember one I've gone to and really enjoyed. But this was actually really good. Great club, great location. We got to a VIP lounge, and it was actually VIP, not VIP, plus a few plebs for no reason. Like the esports crowd were disassociated from everybody else in this nightclub, so it was pretty good. So I'm in there, and I see the Cloud9 guys, and they know I've seen them, and they're doing that whole, you know, like, Richard Lewis, fuck Richard. He's on that show with Thorin.
Okay.
You can tell they're trying not to make eye contact. Like, oh, just don't, man, just don't. I'm like, fuck this shit, right? Like, you know, I've got nothing against these guys. So I go over there, and I'm like, oh, what's up, you know? And they're like, oh, all right, mate. I said, oh, sorry about the final. Sorry how it went down and that. I'm like, yeah. I mean, look, why don't we all do some tequila? Tequila fixes everything. So I get us a bunch of tequila shots in. And Freak's there and Sean's there and they're pounding shots. Sean actually didn't want to take a drink off me initially. He's like, no. I'm like, mate, let me buy you a drink. He's like, no. You're on that show with Thorin. No. You know,
so, listen, I don't know what you could have slipped in there. Chemical interactions, you know. Might want Adderall, man. Come on, like
I think I might even have said that. I said, I think he said to me like, "Come on, it's not like I'm going to spike you with Adderall like that." Something. Anyway, fuck it. So I got Sean to take the drink, and we started talking about it. He's like, "Look, it's just like it just feels like everyone shits on us all the time," and I'm like, "That's just your fucking persecution complex." When you guys got in that final against Fnatic, no one talked about Fnatic for winning the tournament. All anyone ever talked about was, hey, Cloud9 so good, look at their vests. That was like it for like 15 minutes. JW's holding the trophy. Yeah, fuck off, JW. Yeah, fuck you, you cunt. Yeah. You're in the way of Sean Gares and Freakazoid. Flex for us, boys. It was like that, right? It literally was. And we talked about it, and they just said, look, it would just feel so nice for us if you could just get Thorin, because somehow I managed to persuade them, I think it was the tequila, that I actually had never said anything bad about them. I don't even think I have, actually, historically.
No,
but anyway, that might have been a lie, who knows. But they just said, if you could just get Thorin, just give us some credit now. We've made 3 finals. Can you just talk to him? And Freakazoid said, I'd love to meet Duncan. And just ask him, like, why you got to be a hater, man? I think it was he said. So here we are. This is the moment where we can bridge the Cloud9 gap, and you can get your blue vest, and we can all be bros, mate.
Is that it? Is that, no question.
Yeah, you have to give him. You have to.
All right.
Just
I'll give him some credit, mate. I ranked him 5th in the world. That's pretty good, right? They're above Ninjas in Pyjamas and Virtus.Pro right now. That's pretty legit. And EnVyUs has just died, so they might be 4th in the world by the next tournament happens. So that's higher than any NA team has ever been in my rankings. The highest before was 7th place. Shroud is one of the best players in the world. He's a top 10 player in the world. Skadoodle, like I just said, is a top 2 AWPer. He's very, very good. Some of the others I have my questions about. Like I said, Sean Gares is really good if he has time with the demos. Give him enough time with those. He's one of the best leaders. If he doesn't have the time, I don't think they're that great just as a pure default tactical team. They have issues there, and he's a shit player. But it doesn't matter. The rest of the team's so good. It's the same with the EZSkins formula. As long as you're doing brilliant in-game leading, I don't really care if you frag, mate, because if you've got enough stars, they do the fragging for you. It's not necessary for you to do the killing. Nothing. He still has some series where he does stuff that doesn't make sense, that's bad. Still, if you listen to the comms, still doesn't even listen, still does whatever he wants. But every now and then he has a series that's crazy. Freakazoid I actually have a lot of respect for, because anyone who's an actual entry fragger who will just go 100% and do what the in-game leader says, even if you die every round in a row, that takes a lot of balls. There's very few really good players will actually ever do that.
Yeah, that is
and
true.
That's, to me, that is the initial spark that's made this whole Cloud9 run happen. You have to have Sean Gares. He's a massive part of it. Then you have to have the fragging on the other end from Skadoodle and Shroud. But without Freakazoid doing that, I don't think they would win most of these series. They'd have wins, like they'd get a map off someone, they'd lose in a close semi, but they wouldn't be getting all these finals. So I think I've gone through pretty much everyone in the lineup there. With that said, you are absolutely right that they have a persecution complex. By the way, every team in the world who isn't in the top 2 and essentially doesn't win tournaments, so they don't get to hear the overflowing praise, has a persecution complex. What they do is everything nice they hear is like, well, that's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to hear nice things. Everything that's negative, they just take, oh, why are you doing that to me? Think about this. So the same shit that Cloud9 and Cloud9 fans complain about, right, is what they themselves did in these tournaments they did well. So you remember when they beat EnVyUs in the group stage of ESL ESEA, and everyone was like, oh, this is bullshit. Everyone's saying our close wins are just luck. So then they get to the final, and Fnatic beat them on 3 maps out of 4. Yeah, they were just lucky. We should have won. Really? Well, what the fucking odds of that, eh? It's weird how you react the same way as haters. So Freakazoid, are you just a hater of Fnatic, bro? Didn't they beat you legit? Was their win somehow not legit, and your win over EnVyUs was? How does that work?
But Duncan, I want to end on something good, right? So
okay,
can you
bring it back then? Reel it back.
Yeah.
In. Okay.
Can you make a heart with your hand? Okay. And just do that. I can't really do it because one of my fingers has got chopped off. Okay. If you could do it, because you've got working hands, and just say, I love Cloud9.
I think Cloud9's a 5th best team in the world, Rich, and they're a good team.
I tried, mate. I tried. But look, I think we've made progress. Anyway, let's talk about some fucking winners. Let's talk about TSM, right? This tournament, I was convinced they couldn't win it. I thought it was too much too soon. I thought they were coming back.
And by the way, can I just ask you a second? When you said that in such a polite manner, like Freakazoid was like, I really like to meet Duncan and talk to him. Are you sure he didn't like aggressively be like, I'd like to see him.
I've known Freak.
Because I'm just telling you, Freakazoid, listen, you know when you work out all those muscles and take other supplements, you know, it doesn't matter how big the muscles get. That muscle that's like all the nerve fibers under your chin, that's still, you go out when someone knocks you on that, mate. I'm just a little bit of bro science for you right there. Like, let's meet and be friends. Let's have a nice little laugh about it.
He actually just want to meet you and be friends.
Don't get hypey. Okay, well, that's good, man. Like, I just told you, I think he's a good player. I think he does his role well. But I'm just saying, you know, you might be able to lift 200. All I have to do is be able to put like a few pounds per second under that little chin, little catch with the old Shields right hook, and they all go down the same, Rich. I think we might have just broken that whole thing about ending the hideout there.
You really fucked that up. I can't take you anywhere, mate. It's fucking unreal. And I'm pretty sure Freak doesn't have a glass.
Listen, I'd love to meet up, share a couple of Adderalls. I'm sure it's brilliant from everything I've heard.
Oh, God, I tried. Guys, I want everyone watching this show, like, just witness it at home. I did try, didn't I? I did try. This guy, he can't be socialized.
I can't.
He's fucked up. He just can't be socialized.
People have tried before.
He just can't be socialized. Right, anyway, to TSM, winners. Winners in everything they do.
Yeah.
They were phenomenal in the final, but just really good throughout the tournament. As we established, they had that group series win over Fnatic. They continue to establish their dominance over them. I thought their series against Na'Vi was just great. Like I say, to come back from being 16-6 down on on a map that you're meant to be good on, Mirage, and then to beat Na'Vi on Train, which is something new. Like, TSM picked Train. I was like, when we looked at that on the stream, I was like, wow, that's a bad fucking call. Like, because Na'Vi can play Train and they can play Mirage. So they beat them 16-5. You're like, okay, Dust 2, that can go either way. TSM absolutely schooled them on Dust 2. So that, for me, was the series where you really saw what TSM are all about, just as a team. Now, this tournament, it was absolutely ridiculous just how good, in particular, 2 players were for me. And those 2 players were Cajun B, who continued his ridiculous run of form, just dropping frags. But more interesting, he's like the secondary AWPer. But he was winning rounds with a scout. Like, he would tag 3 of them on the scout pistol rounds, and they were picking up ecos. He was getting kills with a scout, like, super important to them. But I thought Dupree really came into his own across the whole of this tournament. He has this play style on particular maps where a CT, he likes to just push through ridiculously and he'll run through a smoke and kill 2 or 3 of you. And it just shows an absolute, in the most healthy and positive way, lack of respect for his opponents. And Fetish wasn't letting him do that under Carrigan. He's been allowed to develop that style. But at this tournament, it just really came alive. He looked absolutely sick. So you did tweet that TSM, man for man, are one of the most skillful lineups, just individually.
The most right now.
Yeah, well, yeah, now that EnVyUs has been dismantled, is what your tweet said. So just a few thoughts about their run through the tournament, what was good, what was bad, and more importantly, bit about the argument about them being the #1 team in the world.
Okay. So in the tournament, I mean, obviously the group stage is phenomenal. Like, yeah, it's a close game against NIP, but they still win. Then you convincingly beat Fnatic. So what do you want there? You were in a group with Fnatic and NIP. You beat them both. You got out in first place. Semi-final against Na'Vi. It looked like this was like, here's the problem. On map 1, Mirage, being awesome on Mirage was one of the reasons TSM became the Fnatic killers. Because now suddenly they could play Mirage against Fnatic and they were winning the majority of them. That doesn't happen most of the time when you play Fnatic on that map. So that was like the key to them opening up the map pool. So suddenly the map pool was in their favor, even though there's 7 maps. So when they got wrecked on Mirage in the semis here, part of me was thinking like, if they lose this series now to Na'Vi, which is looking like they're going to because Train's up next, then we're all going to think to ourselves, yeah, the 3 wins where they have the 3 tournaments in a row were sick, but then they bombed out of ESL in last place, and now they've, kind of unconvincingly lost in the semis. Maybe it's over. Maybe they're not going to keep rising up and become the #1 team. But then the way they won Train and Dust 2 was like the mark of a championship, where you can get wrecked on map 1, and then map 2 is one of your opponent's better maps as well, and you utterly dominate them. This was actually the one map where Dupree went absolutely crazy. He was like plus 20 kills or something. It's absolutely nuts. And then Dust 2 was, again, just a clinic. That's the part that was confusing on the TSM side. I would have thought they would pick Dust 2 as the second map just to ensure there wasn't any danger there of something like this happening. Lose Mirage, and then you have to play Train. So, I mean, listen, finding out they're really good on Train as well is like, holy fuck, this actually might be the best team in the world a couple of months from now when they have the results to back it up, because if they have Train as well, and they have Overpass, and they have Mirage, like, come on, man, this is like almost the whole map pool. As soon as a team gets the whole map pool, that's usually when they're the best team. That's just historically, like, the greatest teams can do that somehow. Once you got to the final, I mean, it was just comprehensive at that point. Like, I didn't think C9 really had much of a chance against TSM. I think TSM's style especially, because here's the thing. Fnatic have had issues in the past few months where, for example, Olaf M disappeared for most of the final that they had against C9. Guardian had a couple of maps where he was a bit iffy in their final. This final was different. This final, all the star players for TSM were just wrecking. So Device was just rolling completely. Cage and B had some sick times. Unfortunately, you didn't even get any favors, basically, if you're C9, and then C9 choked a bit. For TSM, as to why they're not the #1 team, because, like, in my system, at least, I do a system where it's a 3-month span. Because over 3 months, most teams are going to play 5 or 6 tournaments, in some cases 6 or 7. So it's a good span to not just be going off like one fluke or one great bracket draw or something that could upset the whole rankings, So in this particular case, Fnatic has like a similar amount of victories. Now, some of TSM's actual victories, if you look at the tournaments they're at, some of them are better tournaments. Even so, Fnatic has like ESEL, so that's a pretty good one right there. So in terms of wins, it's quite similar. I'd give the edge to TSM there. But beyond that, TSM has nothing except the wins. Except the wins, they have like last places, and then they haven't been in many tournaments. They've only been like 5 tournaments in the 3-month span. Fnatic's been like 6 or 7. So they have like the wins, then they have finals, then they have top 4s everywhere else. So it's like every other area except for like quality of the first places, they have it locked down. And then the number of best of 3s they've won. I think on almost every stat, Fnatic has a slight edge at the moment. Now, I'll put this out there. A lot of that is based on the first part of the 3 months. So as time goes by, TSM keeps winning. They're going to take the #1 spot. It will happen. But I always said this. When TSM won the first 3 tournaments in a row, I said the reason why they won't become the world #1s is because they have to beat Fnatic and win the tournament to get the spot. Every time they don't beat Fnatic or don't play Fnatic or don't get to the final to play Fnatic, Fnatic tends to just win against everyone else. So they're going to be picking up every title you don't get, basically. So it's a tough task. But listen, TSM's primed to become #1. They're just not right now for me. I mean, in form right now, yeah, they're probably the best team. But I mean, the way I do my rankings, they're not,
Yeah. But I mean, at this rate, isn't it like 4 out of the last 5 events that?
Yeah, but that's also because they've only attended those 5 events.
Yeah, but
so it helps when you don't go to tournaments and lose. You have to realize the Fnatic team goes to tournaments where they don't win and they come second.
Yeah.
So it's hard to argue with that, you know. Their bad tournaments is them coming second in round of 4.
Who's the best player on TSM for you right now?
I actually think it's Device.
Yeah.
The thing is,
it's really weird actually. Looking at those stats from the final, what stood out to me while I was watching the final isn't necessarily reflected in the stats there. I thought it was quite interesting because Device was the top of everything.
Well, here's the thing. Device, the way he dominates is like what I described about that Olaf M train game. He doesn't dominate by getting super crazy highlight frag rounds. He just dominates by getting you a kill every round, by going into this situation, being in a 1v2 and getting that trade frag every time in a certain spot where that just makes you a winning machine, you know. Now, yeah, if it was only the Device show, they probably wouldn't be the best team in the world. They wouldn't even be a candidate. If you have someone like Cage, the thing for me about dupreeh and Device is they're both really consistent in how good they are and what they do. Then then Cage and B rather, is like he's like the JW of their team. He's the wild card. So he doesn't do it every map. Maybe 1 in 4 maps, he goes crazy. But when he goes crazy, you add that to these really consistent players, you're going to win a fuck ton of games. And that means in the maps he doesn't go crazy, you're still right there going to win anyway, just from the consistency. So to me, the stars of their team, right now, they're in that. That's why they look so at their most powerful, because all of the star players are in form right now. And when that happens, like the whole machine just works so beautifully. It doesn't have to be one guy who does it for them. Whereas at the moment, Fnatic has to have all of them go crazy to even have a chance in some of these games.
So let's do the news. We're back. Sorry about that. Just I think Freakazoid has had heard about what we said about. I'm kidding. It's not that. It's not that. He's a good guy. Just a little momentary DDoS, which, you know, me and Duncan are used to that sort of thing. Anyway, this is the news. So, Nip and EnVyUs, what the fuck am I on about? EnVyUs and Titan, have done a player swap. Maybe it should have been Nip, who knows, mate. But EnVyUs and Titan have done a player swap. We knew Kenny S and Apex were going to EnVyUs, which we talked about last show and what we thought about what that would bring to the table. I didn't realize that shox and Smiths were going to give EZSkins sort of another chance as the sugar daddy. And I think that's great for them. Like, Titan have that X factor now with shox there.
Yeah.
I still don't really feel that that is a team that's going to win things overall, and B, I don't think it's a project that's going to have a particularly long shelf life. Now, I know you did a video about this on your YouTube channel, so I won't make you repeat all of that ad nauseum. But just a few thoughts about who's got sort of the better end of this, and in particular focusing on Titan, which we haven't had time to talk about. What do you think this team's going to go on to achieve, if anything?
Yeah, the craziest thing about this move, is to me and you, it makes perfect sense, because when you look at the results of the teams and you know the concept that like shox has to go with Smiths, so since you want to get rid of Smiths, you sort of have to get rid of shox. It all does add up at the end. Like, it is the only players that each team could get. It's the obvious move since both teams need a change. The problem is when you say that thing about like, I'm surprised that shox gave like EZSkins another chance to be the sugar daddy. Here's the thing. Here's the analogy for you, Rich. It's like when a girl from a rich family, she meets a young guy who's got a leather jacket and a motorcycle, and, you know, the mother's like a really controlling mother who wanted her to kind of like, you know, go to finishing school and marry like a nice businessman and you know, have like a nice family. Instead, she wants to go, and she's like, listen, don't marry him, you know, you'll be slumming it, you know, he'll never be able to take care of you the way he should. You know, I know you're in love right now, but love is fleeting. You know, she's like she's the crone figure, you know, she's like, you know, my father, you know, your father and I were in love at once, but that doesn't last. But look what I have here. I have a foundation, I have a family, I'm part of the ladies' society, you know. So then the girl's like, okay, I don't care, mother, I'm going to go and do it anyway. So she goes out there and she leaves and she goes and she gets married to that guy, and it doesn't work out eventually, right? You know, love does burn out, and then she's poor, and then she's trying to bring up some kids on her own, and he's not treating her so well because he's having a hard time at the factory. So eventually, here's the thing, it's not like she liked her mother, it's not like she thought her mother's right, but eventually, because it's going so badly there, she does come back to her mother, and she says like, oh, everything went wrong, you know, I should have listened to you. And then the mother's just like, that's right, darling, it's okay, everything's all right now, you're back where you belong, you can take your old room, bring the kids back, we'll get you back on. I told you he was a worthless piece of shit, that Happy. He was overrated, wasn't he? He was never as good as me, was he? I am the best. Now, welcome back to Titan, and just remember to do everything that I say. And that's what it's like. And now they're back in the compound, as it were, Rich. They're back in the cult.
So do you think Existence basically can't get enough of that shox D? Is that what you're basically saying here?
I think that here's the thing. What's funny is there was so much drama involved in the other way that this move went. The original French Revolution of like the shocks of like, no pun intended, of like NBK and Smiths aren't playing with Existence anymore. Suddenly Apex isn't playing with Happy. All this drama that in theory should have put up walls between these players where they'll never play with each other again. All has been erased and forgotten temporarily because both teams eventually, by their own standards, were just doing so badly, and these were the only options. So rather than all just suck forever and have no chance, everyone's like, oh yeah, nah, I'd love to play with you again, Apex. I think you're great, actually. You're totally not like a backstabbing cunt who just fucking left me all high and dry, and I was just going to be playing with fucking screaming leftovers. I mean, Epsilon, if I hadn't have got that final hot chopper out of fucking Vietnam into EnVyUs, you cunt. So totally not a problem there. I'd love to have you in my team again. You seem brilliant. And shox is like, yeah, the spirit with the Existence, there is a lot of synergy we can revive there. I can't wait for him to tell me what toothpaste to use tonight. I love it. It is fun. Yeah, let's see you in 3 months, mate. Let's see how it's going in 3 months, eh? Let's see if you want a little bit more of that freedom there.
Right, when you do that shox impression, all I can think of is shox talking to the makeup lady at Gfinity. And I'm just going to tell a story. I don't even care.
Okay, go for it.
I don't even care anymore. And I told you, 6 months in esports, gloves off.
Okay,
total
go
truth.
for it. I know it's coming. Come on.
Well, yeah, no, you fucking know you were there. But basically, this is how much of a legend shox is. Like, so we're getting all our... Look at Duncan grinning. We're getting all our makeup done because we have makeup, before these things. And shox was basically talking to the lady who is a great person at Gfinity. And he was just talking, and he was saying, I think that, maybe you should broaden your horizon. Maybe you should think about sex with another girl, perhaps. And, you can imagine that this would be fucking outrageous coming from anyone else just getting makeup or just hanging around the makeup area. But, like, I know, shox just has this way about him. So it didn't seem offensive. And the makeup lady was like, oh, I've never really thought about that. I've never done that. Like, should I? And he goes, oh, in France, it's very...
He basically made it seem like you are a prude if you haven't had a same-sex menage a trois.
In France, it is normal. A lot of girls experiment, Perhaps you should, think about this. And again, she would have been outraged. Duncan comes in, hey, love, you ever thought about getting under a quilt with another lass? Like, Duncan's getting a fucking big red palm print on his face and driven out of there. But she's actually looking at us and going, oh, you know what? Now that shox has said it, yeah, I might do it. And then just sort of quietly went, and maybe I can watch. Like this. Brilliant. Absolute fucking legend, that guy. Love him a bit. Anyway, so I said this. I think he's sort of too good a player to go back to Titan. And I certainly hope Existence doesn't treat him in the way that he has in the past, which is he's tried to take this incredible flamboyant, expressionistic, creative player and say, you'll be even better if you play this way, the way I tell you. And of course, that's not true. That isn't true about shox. You have got to let shox play how he wants to play. And historically, Existence has refused to let him do that. And that's always been the cause of consternation. Like, it's not what gets them to the point where they kick each other, but it's the start. It's that need for disobedience. Like, where Existence will say, right, shox, I just want you to stand here and look at that doorway and kill anything that comes through that doorway. And shox will go, I'm going to push. And he just goes and he gets like 3 kills or whatever. Even though it's worked, because he didn't adhere to the Existence strat, Existence is like, all right, motherfucker, that's a black mark in your book. And that's where it starts. And that's where it's always started historically. So I hope Titan aren't going to go down that road again, but I just don't see why they won't, because history, isn't this like the 3rd time?
At least. Third or 4th at least, yeah.
Yeah, it's
no, the thing
unreal.
is, though, I actually think there's a chance they won't. Here's the thing. when the first Very Games got shox into it again in CSGO, that was when Very Games, a couple of months later, became the #1 team. Now, the theory behind that is that basically, after spending so much time trying to get Scream and Kenny S, who both had issues playing under his system, to play the eXistenZ style, when shox came in, eXistenZ was sort of at the end of his tether, and he was sort of like, okay, I'll give shox a bit more freedom here. Like, he's so good. He'll be the one guy who cannot sort of follow all my rules exactly. And that actually allowed them to become the best team in the world. So the problem is, eXistenZ isn't wrong. His sort of approach is significantly better for anyone except the world's best players, okay? As long as you're not like a top 5 player in the world, his system's better. He'll know better than you where you should be and how to counter the enemy and what to do as a follow-up to work as a teamwork. So his system works for lesser players, but with geniuses, you have to kind of let them do what they want. And so you need to find the balance. Now, they found it for a while in Very Games, but I get the sense when results start to drop off, that's when someone like eXistenZ can be like, right, well, it's not working your way anymore, so we have to go back to mine a bit. So I can see where there's going to be some tension there, and then that leads to the breakup, okay? But what I think could make this work is the Kenny S factor from the last Titan, where one of the ways Kenny S worked when he came back into Titan is, again, Titan were at the death's door. So eXistenZ was like, you know what? You're by far the best player in my team. You're one of the best players in the world. Fuck it, I'll build the whole team around you. Like, I'll put you in all the positions you want. I'll give you everything you want. All I ask is do these couple of things. I'll even have guys like backing you up, guys going in front of you. It's going to be about you. I'm going to put your weapon in your hand to give us the kill. And it worked. It was working brilliantly until Kaylee got banned, actually. They were a really good team. Bear in mind, they were never going to be the best. They never had the best lineup, you know. So I hope that similar mentality will happen here. Well, eXistenZ will realize this is probably my last go around. shox is by far a better player than I even should be able to get. Like, in a sane world, he'd be staying in EnVyUs, and we'd have nothing right now. Like, we'd have to be picking up Smiths and fucking NBK or something, you know. Like, we wouldn't have any chance to be a great team. So we've gotten away with getting shox somehow. Now that everything has to be how he wants it. Like, the rest of the players can do your system eXistenZ, but shox has to be able to play, hopefully, the old free-flowing style where he's just allowed to be brilliant. He's allowed to play make, you know. If he can do that, I don't think this team can be as good as the EnVyUs lineup, but I think they could be an upset team again. I think they could be like when Kenny was in God mode, and they could get some of those occasional top 4s, win a big best of 3. They're not going to win tournaments, I don't think. Well, I think the other team got the better of it.
Yeah, I just want to say as well, before we just pick up one other piece of news, I think that we're going to see Kenny S get back to his best, actually. I think one of the constant fucking reasons why he was like underperforming, he was dropping like 40 frags like all the time, putting the rest of Titan on his shoulders, and they would still lose. And you could just see it wearing on him, like, wow, I'm back to my best. Oh yeah, but we're still shit. Yeah, fuck this. There's no point. It's like trying to push a fucking boulder up a hill. It's just too much work. I can't do it. And that he went back to just being, it's kind of average. For this sort of skill bracket that we're talking about. So I think having that opportunity to play with sort of better players, be reinvigorated, I think Kenny S will start getting back to the Kenny S that we know, the Kenny S from 9-10 months ago or whatever. So I'm super looking forward to that happen, actually, because he's an amazing player on his day. So
the key thing is he doesn't have to be as sick as he was before. He doesn't have to be in God mode. If he's just good, that'll be enough, because the rest of the team, the quality's there,
Well, I said
he has help now.
Historically, what has always happened, right? Like this is just, if you followed any of the French teams through CSS and moving into CSGO, this is what would happen. French team comes together, world #1. They play, they start winning things. Few cracks start to appear, but they're still winning things. Then they just decide, you know what, those cracks are too big. We just need to sort of change players. We're going to drop off. We're going to not win things now. Maybe they don't. Maybe they get a few second places or whatever, a bit further down the trough. They change. They bring in, they're back to #1. And that's how it's always gone. So I honestly think the EnVyUs team, they'll probably be unplayable for the first 2 months. They'll just have that feel-good factor. They'll probably be wrecking everybody. Like, I honestly think at this stage, with Fnatic on the down, they seem to be on a bit of a downslope. I know it's only one tournament. I don't want to throw hyperbole in there, but they seem to have some underlying problems. I think it's a good time for EnVyUs, ultimately, to sort of put together a new lineup. So I'll definitely be watching them with interest. Final couple pieces of news. Simple Have you seen his new team?
Yeah. It's a waste of time, right? What's the point? When you're in the kind of form he's in, that even if you're still a great player, that form doesn't last forever. Maybe if you can even get 6 months out of it, you've already done better than most people in history. Instead, he's going to waste the back end of that 6 months playing with his mates, basically. Now, some of them aren't absolutely terrible. I don't know most of them, but I looked them up, and some of them are like bear in mind the CIS region doesn't have much beyond Na'Vi, beyond Hellraisers, those sorts of teams. They're not terrible, but they're just never going to be relevant. Like, basically, the only reason you'll ever watch this team is for him, and they'll not ever make it to any massive lands, I predict. So it's the end unless he comes out of being banned, I guess.
Surely this has just got to be to keep him warmed up till his ban's lifted.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? Hopefully.
It's like, not like this simple. Not like this. Don't go out like this.
A waste of a career if he
plays like that. Yeah, seriously. Like, no disrespect to Arch, Fix, Cyber Focus, or the incredibly named Spaz. No disrespect to any of those players, but please, Simple, please get back to something better.
I mean, 2016, and when everyone says the ban gets lifted sometime early 2016, if that's true, I mean, that's a long way away. Listen, by then, who knows? Maybe Na'Vi's having problems then. Maybe Hellraisers want to make a new team. Maybe there's a CIS shuffle. He's obviously going to be the first name on everyone's radar as long as he's good still then. So if you're someone like him, it's just don't quit. Just don't quit, and eventually it'll work out.
Well, I agree. And as I said, I keep thinking he can join Na'Vi and just make some super team. Provided his emotional and personal issues can be, conquered. The demons. Final piece of news then. EZSkins. We've gone full circle back to our mate Henry G.
Okay.
So basically, I don't know if you know Henry G. I've known Henry G many years. I met Henry G for the first time. He must have been 16, 17, something like that. I don't know. I've known him since he was a kid anyway. So, managed him a few times, Always thought he was a good person. And then he just decided from nowhere, he said, oh, what's that? Skins gambling? That's definitely the sort of thing I want to be involved in. That market hasn't been saturated. I'm in. So he created a website called EZSkins, which, on the one hand, the marketing brain in me can say, yeah, actually, you see all those plebs who bet skins and they say easy skins, easy life. And you think, yeah, fuck you, you need to die. Back, as I was saying to Sam there, I don't know why we're coming back just to do a few tired jokes about the fucking UK scene. But anyway, go on. Let's do it. So EZSkins, all that stuff about Henry G, he wanted in on the action. But not only content with getting a piece of the action of taking skins away from 13-year-old Ukrainians with gambling addictions that they have no idea how to handle. He's now decided not to take that money to the bank. He's decided to dump it into the ultimate cash sink. Literally the bottomless pit of despair, the ultimate waste of time. A UK Counterstrike team. That said, out of what's left of UK Counterstrike, probably the best names that are left with the game installed. Rattlesnake's there, Pulse is there, Weber's there, Fearless is there, Mole is there. But I just wanted to get your opinions on that, Duncan. You're from the UK. You never really followed Source. But even you must want a UK Counter-Strike team that can play a little bit.
I don't really give a fuck either way, but this is probably the best chance. I mean, everyone always said that you need Weber and Rattlesnake on the same team, and it only happened once, and it blew up 2 months later or something. So it's at least the best chance. Some of these players, obviously, those two especially, have something going for them where there's some potential there. I still don't know that the team will actually be that good anyway. But you see, that's the problem, Rich. When you have a business where the model is almost printing money, you're just making money in a ridiculous fashion where there's no real effort involved in making the money. You just make it sort of like investment money, or you're getting it just kids gambling money. And then you just have all this money. You can then waste loads of money yourself on other stuff. Oh, wait a minute. I just remember what sort of show I'm on here. I think that's great, actually. I just love the influx of money into the scene and support things that are really good.
Don't ruin this for me. Don't ruin this for me, Duncan. You've got other options. Don't ruin this for me. Alphadraft like me. They've even said so. They were like, doing a great job on the show, Rich. Really like the direction you've taken it in. It's all been natural. We don't have any content input at all. Now, just get this logo tattooed on your forehead. No, they haven't said any of that. It's been great. So don't ruin this. Don't take this away. I need this.
Sure, that like some Alphadraft employee wasn't like, have you ever thought about threesome with a man so I could watch? And you had to be like, I'll think about it. Yeah.
No, actually, I was going to say it to them.
Okay. In the Illuminati is normal.
In the Illuminati is normal. Now, have you ever thought about having a menage a trois with another company run by venture capitalists? Perhaps Alphadraft and Unicorn could lie down next to each other with Bryce Bloom in the shadow? No, nothing like that. Anyway, I just need the money, dude. Don't take this away from me, man. I just moved house. Yeah, I'm not like you living in Korea with a waifu. You know, I've got needs. So yeah, basically UK Counterstrike is shit, and that's where we're going to end the show, I think. So
just be glad, Freakazoid. At least you're from America, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to be fair, we don't even. It's better to be. It's like, what was it? Fucking Oscar Wilde or whatever said, wasn't it? Like, you know, there's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. I think he said that.
Something like that,
yeah, something like that. Fuck him.
Or bad Adderall, I think was the end of the quote.
Yeah, there's only one thing worse than bad Adderall. That's good Adderall. I think he said something incredibly witty like that. So anyway, I think at that point we should just kill the show. It's always a pleasure, Duncan. Apart from your top 10, is there anything you want to plug?
I did that Olaf Meister piece. If you want to read that, Olaf M, the measure
Pretty
of the
good.
mice. So look that up, goldper10.com. Probably some more videos coming this week. I'm at CEVO LAN, actually. I'm leaving in like an hour or something. So I'll be at that LAN with watching a bunch of tier 3 teams try and beat Cloud9, Virtus.Pro, and Na'Vi. But should still be interesting to see if Cloud9 can win the event with no Fnatic and TSM there.
And yeah,
beating my good buddy Freakazoid.
Yeah, I can't wait, mate. I hope you have a good time out there. And I've just realised that after saying, yeah, the UK scene is shit, mate. This weekend, I'm off to Gfinity to do the UK CSGO Championship, where not only will I be hosting it, I'll actually be casting again. A little bit. Rolling back the years. It'll be me. It'll be like Kyanite, Banks. So I can't wait to hear the phrase.
Competition isn't that tough then, so I think you can cut it with that crowd, Rich.
Well, I'm just looking forward to hearing easy peasy, lemon squeezy, followed by would you look at that? So I'm looking forward to hearing those catchphrases.
Classics. It's up there with Inhuman Reactions, right?
Oh, I'm gonna work with these people. What am I doing? Right. Anyway, Duncan, thanks for your time. I'll let you go and do whatever you do in Korea. Don't call anyone a dog. Whatever you do. And thanks to all the people that tuned in. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. Bit of a long one. Apologies for the DDoSing. The people that do that are subhuman scum, as Alan Partridge would say. We hope you've enjoyed by the numbers. And until we see you next time, next Wednesday, may all your drafts be alpha. Take care.